Want a job where you can use your talents, make a difference, and have the freedom of remote work? Then meet Belay. Belay has contractor opportunities for proven professionals, providing administrative support and social media strategy to fast-paced organizations throughout the United States, all from your home. To learn more, just visit belaysolutions.com/jobs to apply. That's BELAY solutions.com/jobs.
Who are you texting?
My therapist.
You text with your therapist?
Text, video chat, call. Yep.
That sounds too easy. How did you find her?
I just went to betterhelp.com/save. She's a licensed therapist and it's all online. I connect when it's convenient for me and don't waste time driving anywhere. Plus, it's affordable.
I wonder if I should try it.
It's great to talk to someone in confidence. She's helped me sort out quite a few things. And right now you save 10% off the first month when you go through betterhelp.com/save.
betterhelp.com/save. Got it.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith and Rich Kraetsch from Voices of Wrestling. On today's show, we'll be announcing the winners of our year-end awards, answering your questions, and covering all of this news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing to Social Suplex Podcast Network or to Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can get all our podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tee store, ProWrestlingTees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate, clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And this week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. And like you heard in our intro, we are joined by a very special guest today, the captain, Rich Kraetsch from the Voices of Wrestling flagship podcast, voicesofwrestling.com. Rich, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It's a hell of an intro, you guys. Rich does. I've heard that one before, but man, when I'm on it, it's like, man, that's a lot to. That's a good get, Rich. You know, I know he's on your network, but that's a hell of an intro, man. It gets you pumped up, man. I know. It's like, man, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to run through a wall. Talk to me again. Let's go.
There's been like 2 times where I've been like, you know what? Let's change it up. Let me read it, and then I think I can get through it, and I'm like, oh, this is a lot harder than I think it sounds like it would be. But Jeremy kills it every week.
Absolutely does. Yeah, that's a great operation you guys have here. Really happy to be on here, and I wish we had done it a little bit sooner. I know obviously we had been talking back and forth for it feels like months now, trying to figure out a time and a place to make this happen. So I'm glad we can finally get on here, and I think it's going to be a real fun topic here today, talking about the little bit of year in review of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, I know you're very busy, Rich. You watch more wrestling than I do, which I didn't think was possible at one time. But you guys literally watch.
I'm an idiot, though. So do not aspire to be what I am. It is not what you want to do. And then there's people that watch like way more than I do too. And I'm like, what do you do? Like, literally from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, you must be watching wrestling. Because I feel like I try to pack it in as much as humanly possible, and I still watch like a fraction of what some other people do. So.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on the show and spending some time with us. We're excited, but I just wanted to say. For the few times that we have met in person, you guys over at Voices of Wrestling have always been gracious, including us at meet and greets and fan meetups and, just hanging out, watching shows. So it's always been cool that you guys have kind of, done that with us, and we're glad to have you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hopefully be able to do it again sometime soon. When back in the old days, we used to go to wrestling shows and go places and leave our houses and stuff. So when that eventually happens again, I'll be happy to meet up with you guys again, and hopefully in much better times. And maybe it'll be a New Japan show, maybe it'll be a WrestleMania weekend, but we'll do it again sometime soon for sure.
Definitely. So before we jump into our awards, every time we have a new guest on, let's kind of get a little background on their New Japan, kind of their journey into New Japan, and how they got started. So how did you get started watching New Japan?
So I think I was always kind of like somewhat aware of New Japan Pro Wrestling in my early days of watching wrestling. And I became like a real hardcore wrestling fan, I'd say about 1997. And I'm 33 right now. So that's the age that like obviously a lot of people started, especially in that time period, really, really got into wrestling. So it was like 1997 that I got way into, WWF and WCW and stuff. And I was always pretty early on, a little bit aware of New Japan Pro Wrestling, mostly because I was like addicted to like wrestling magazines at that time too, and WWF magazine and WCW magazine, and then of course Pro Wrestling Illustrated and the other 20 different wrestling magazines there were at that time. So I was always aware of New Japan Pro Wrestling, but I don't know that I ever really watched much other than maybe like a match or two if I in the early days of downloading stuff online and your Kazaz and your random very weird, like this might be a virus that destroys my computer or it's the match that I want it to be. We'll find out when I click play and okay, it's a virus. Great. You never knew. It was the wild, wild west. So it's
usually a little of both. You still get the match, but you also get the virus with it.
Right. Which is, not the, a decent trade-off depending on what the match was. But and you had to make sure it was a really good match because you're like, this could destroy my computer. So this better be goddamn worth my time. But no, I was always like kind of aware of guys. Like obviously Jushin Thunder Liger is somebody who from the moment you see him in a wrestling magazine or whatever, you're like, what is that? And who is that? And where does he wrestle? And all that sort of stuff. But I never really became like what I would say like a true New Japan fan until about 2010, 2011. And the big reason why is my co-host, Voice of Wrestling flagship co-host Joe Lanza. He'd been bothering me for years to watch New Japan. He's like, come on, watch it. And I was one of those fans that just bitched about WWF instead or WWE instead and just said, this is, this sucks. This is garbage. Or, and he's like, well, here, just watch this. Like, I'm telling you, it's good. And I'm like, all right, fine. Like, most of us have to be convinced for some reason that like, instead of just watching stuff that you hate, watch stuff that you might enjoy. And that's the match that I remember that finally hooked me was Kojima and Hiroshi Tanahashi from Wrestle Kingdom 5. 5? Do I have the number right?
Yeah, I believe it's 5.
Right.
5, yeah, okay. And he's like, here, watch this. If you don't like it, I won't bother you ever again. And then I was like, oh, that was great. I want more of that. And then for pretty much from that point forward, I've been pretty much addicted and watching almost every major show and covering and talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling for all that time since then.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's Wrestle Kingdom 5.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I forget if it was 6 or 5, so that's perfect. Yeah.
Cool. So who's your favorite New Japan wrestler, maybe even of all time or currently or both?
Yeah, I think my answer is probably the same for both. It's going to be Kazuchika Okada is I think my favorite. It helps that like when I became like a real big New Japan fan is like during his rise. So I was able to kind of see the beginning and see it kind of come to fruition and be like, hey, I like this guy. This guy's cool. And it was a divisive opinion at that time when that new beginning where he beats Tanahashi. It's like, who the hell is this guy? No way. And I was like, no, I like this guy. I think it's going to work. It's going to be, that was like a hot take at the time. And then like, obviously in a year's time, it was clear that he was, going to be a star and going to be great. But that was always a lot of fun to kind of follow that entire path. And that's a big reason why I think I do consider him at least my favorite now, and I think favorite of all time is because I was able to see the entire life cycle of him. I was able to see him come back, able to see him win the title, see him go through all these big main events, and he's also pretty goddamn incredible. So it's like I don't really have to sell that. Hey, I like Okada because Okada's great and fantastic. But he's always hit me on a certain level that very few wrestlers in my entire life ever have.
See, what's funny is like. I like Okada a lot, but I'm so in love with Tanahashi that like I just assumed right when you were starting, I was like, oh, he's gonna say Tanahashi, of course. I mean, it can't be anybody else.
I love Tanahashi. Yeah, it's definitely a close battle there, but yeah, for some reason it was always Okada just kind of got me, and I think again, like if I had seen Tanahashi through like his early days, because I'm always one of the big things that I'm into in wrestling, and even today, with the Young Lions and stuff is seeing the progression of wrestlers and seeing them come in and immediately just having to be like, hey, I think this guy's going to be good, or I think this guy's going to suck or whatever. And then kind of sticking with that. You know what I mean? Like you got your guy and you're like that, like Yu Mura. The first time I saw him, I was like, that dude's going to be great. And now I have to like no matter what happens over the next 10 years, I have to be like, no, that guy's good. That guy's going to be good. Like the same thing happened with Yo. Like Joe and I would argue about Yo and Sho for years and years and years. And I was like, Yo is going to be the better guy. I may have lost that argument, but I haven't lost it yet. So I'm going to let that go for a little bit.
There's still time.
Not good for this year. I maybe lost a little ground this year between the Yo and Sho argument there. But again, like it's so getting it on the ground floor for Okada really I think helped me build that sort of relationship with him that's still I'm still feeling today.
Well, just so you guys know, we're firmly in the Oka camp with you guys, so you got support.
Good. You're smart. Well, you're smart guys, so that's why you get it. So
yeah, and so last but not least, your favorite New Japan pro wrestling match.
Yeah, so this one took me a little bit of time to kind of think of, okay, is it definitely this match? And I tried to think of a few other ones when you guys sent me those notes, and it was like, nah, dude, this is it. It nothing has beaten it, and nothing I don't think has really even come close. It's the Invasion Attack match between Tanahashi and Okada from 2013. April 7th, 2013, I think is the exact date there. I mean, that is just pro wrestling excellence. And anybody listen to this that has not seen that match in full or hasn't watched it recently, it holds up so well, even though I can't reading that again. I cannot believe it's 2013 that match was. I feel incredibly old now that match was that long ago. But just pro wrestling excellence. Tanahashi at the top of his game, Okada at the top of his game. It's got arm, limb selling if that's your thing. It's got hot action. It's got kick. It just has everything you could possibly want in a wrestling match, and doesn't get too long. So that's that one is just like I always go back to that match if I'm ever just like I want to like wrestling again. Like, wait, why do I like this wrestling stuff? Like, why do I waste my time with this garbage? And then I watch that match, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why, because this is just like the best thing I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, it's definitely that Invasion Attack match.
Jeremy, let's make that the recommended match of the week this week for ourselves.
All right, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, we do a little variation on Joe and Rich recommend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We do a weekly recommendation, and so we'll just use that one this week, and we'll give our reports next week.
I'll do the same. Yeah, I'll definitely watch it again this week as well. May as well. Yeah, it is. I'm trying to remember the last time. About a year or so ago, I think I watched it. So yeah, I'll do it again as well.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to watching. I have watched it before, but yeah, definitely looking forward to watching that again. I mean, you can't go wrong with Okada Tanahashi.
No, yeah. Pretty much anytime you say okay, you can just watch them all, and they all are pretty goddamn great. So
nice. Well, now we're going to jump in and talk about the Keeping It Strong Style Year-End Awards, our 4th annual Year-End Awards. We're going to go over all the categories, announce the winners that you listeners voted in, just have a little general discussion on the winners. I think there were some upsets. I think a few surprises. Some there were just like dead giveaways.
On the air discussion meeting, do you want to just host and announce everything, or you want to go back and forth? How you want to do this?
It's up to you. What do you want to do?
You know what? I'll prefer you this year. You go ahead and host it. I'll just give you my insights.
All right. So let's start with Wrestler of the Year. So this
baby.
Very tight race here. So coming in 3rd place with 313 points, we have the G1 winner, the Golden Star Kota Ibushi, coming in 2nd with 346 points, the Dragon Shingo Takagi. And then coming in 1st in the Keeping It Strong Style 2020 Wrestler of the Year with 376 points, the current double champion, Tetsuya Naito. So, Rich, what do you think? Naito, Wrestler of the Year.
Yeah, I'm not totally surprised about that. I think he's a pretty easy pick, both from in ring for the definitely the first half of the year. I mean, the in ring was pretty incredible. I mean, back-to-back nights of just tremendous matches in Wrestle Kingdom, some pretty good matches earlier in the year as well. And then we'll talk about it a little bit later. I have some issues with some stuff that he did later in the year, not necessarily because of him, but because of other people that he was facing, other former LIJ members that he was facing in boring main events. But I think he's a pretty good pick. And then if you also want to come at it from a business standpoint and an important standpoint, I mean, that first half of the year, even though it does feel like it was 40 months ago at this point, I mean, that was pretty important. I mean, two back-to-back nights in the Tokyo Dome with pretty damn good crowds, wins the double title. I mean, that was a huge moment, and goes back, and then obviously has the match with Kenta in February, and then if you even want to include Shingo's or Jingu Stadium later in the year as well. I mean, there's a lot of meat on the bones there for Naito. So I have no real issues with Naito being the guy. My more interesting thing is I think of who finished second with Shingo. I think that's actually a little bit more surprising, but I don't want to jump ahead. So.
Yeah, I guess with me, I've always felt like we've never set parameters on this award and said, oh, it needs to be like the Ric Flair, all around sort of thing. We've never said it's just strictly the in-ring work, but I've always kind of assumed, based off of what we've seen the voters kind of go with in the past, that a lot of it was based almost primarily on the body of work. And that's not to say Naito was a slouch in ring at all this year. I mean, he had some pretty fantastic matches. You mentioned a couple there, Rich, and then obviously, his G1, especially the first night with Tanahashi, I can kind of call back to that. I guess what I was surprised about was some of the other really strong in-ring workers that were on this list, like Suzuki, Ishii, Tanahashi, Ibushi. They didn't really register. Now, I will say this point variance we have between Shingo and Naito, 30 points. It's the tightest race we've ever had.
Wow.
For Wrestler of the Year. But Naito was in the lead firmly the entire voting period. Like, he never really – I mean, I think there was one day Shingo barely got past him, and then Naito just took off. So, like, we've kind of known the entire, like, time that Naito was, like, running away with this thing. And I think Shingo got, like, a last-minute, spree of votes, but it wasn't enough to put him over the top, really.
Yeah, one thing on this show we've had the last couple of years, we had the LIJ fans, especially during the beginning. We started in 2017, and they were clamoring for Naito to win the title. They would always ask us every week, when is Naito going to win the title? Why does Gato hate Naito? We get these questions every week with the diehard LIJ fans wanting Naito to get that moment to beat Okada in the Dome. Wrestle Kingdom 12, they were in a frenzy when Okada won and retained. And so now they're finally having the year, and I think, Naito's a very popular guy. I think sometimes we underestimate how popular he is, even with the Western fan base. And I think what we saw here, he finally won the double titles at Wrestle Kingdom. He finally beat Okada. He beat Jay White, and then kind of going on, like you mentioned, business-wise at Osaka, new beginning Osaka with Kenta, sold-out house there. I wasn't a big fan of that match, but still a big moment. Got comeuppance on Kenta for ruining his Dome celebration. And then you just look for the rest of the year. Even with a not so great rivalry with Evil that produced 4 stinkers, it's like I see why people are so Naito's their guy, and so I can understand from a star perspective, from business perspective, why a lot of people would have voted Naito over, say, Tomohiro Ishii, who's literally the top in-ring performer of the year, or somebody like Shingo, who's been on the same level as Ishii.
And it's not even just that. When you mention like the 4-match series with Evil, sure, that wasn't necessarily, it wasn't like critically acclaimed or anything, but in terms of like importance and spotlight, it was the primary feud of the entire year. Right. Almost all the eyes were on it. So I also think that kind of resonates with people, especially like you mentioned, LIJ fans. They've been clamoring for there to be like, a break. Now, I know like the storytelling element of this wasn't really maybe our cup of tea, but there is the element. It's like his first pariah, he broke off from him. People kind of wanted him to get his revenge. And, whether you like the matches or not, like Rich mentioned, it did pay off at Jingu Stadium with the fireworks and the big moment and everything. So I think that those big moments are kind of what maybe resonated with, a majority of the fan base, probably.
And I think, what I see in this is it reminds me a lot of like, the NBA MVP doesn't always go to the best player in the league, or, any sports MVP pretty often doesn't, sometimes it does, sometimes it aligns with it, but a lot of times it goes to the guy who's like the story of the year. And I think it definitely was Naito's year. I mean, he was front and center in most of the major stories. He starts the year, winning the double titles. He finishes the year in a big time feud with Evil, and he has a big time feud with Evil in the middle of the year, has the feud with Kenta in the early part of the year as well, and then finishes it off as obviously still being in the mix for the title, and the stuff with Ibushi and the stuff with Jay White. So it's like, whether, you think he's the best in-ring wrestler or whatever, if you, it's depending on your interpretation of the award. And I'd say from your guys, it's actually cool that you don't give like, this is what the award means. Cause I love the idea of awards being interpreted by okay, how do you sort of interpret Wrestler of the Year? Like a lot of people come at it from a lot of different ways, and that's why you'll get really interesting results like you guys have here. But I think if you're telling the story of the year, he's telling the story of New Japan in 2020, Naito's kind of that MVP or that guy, that Wrestler of the Year. So I have really no issue with him there.
Yeah, I think as we go through the rest of the categories, we'll see that, this was Naito's year.
So, I mean, it sounds like for you, Rich, if you were to have, given this award out, Naito's probably who you would have gone with.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, and I've had discussions with people about like, wrestler, kind of the Flair Thaz style, like, Wrestling Observer, Wrestler of the Year, and then also like the most outstanding. To me, the most outstanding wrestler of New Japan this year is Shingo Takagi. Like, I think, his in-ring, I thought was just, second to none. And he had so many more chances as well. I mean, when you look at the amount of singles matches that he had compared to other top guys in the company, like he was always out there in singles matches. He was in every single tournament, a lot like, Will Osprey last year, who, if you participate in every single one of the tournaments, like you'll have a really good chance of getting a lot of really good matches. And that's kind of what happened with Shingo. So if I'm basing it purely on work, it would probably be Shingo. But if I kind of, encapsulate a lot of different stuff and really tell the story of the year, then I would have gone with Naito as well. And that is how I interpret the award as well, as like, who, if you want to say who best represented or who was the best of New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2020, it's Naito for sure.
What about for you, Jeremy?
So I voted for Tomohiro Ishii. I just thought, once again, Ishii just had another incredible year, and we've talked about it on the show before. He's one of these guys that, whether it's a singles, a tag, 6-man, 10-man tag, any kind of matchup, like you could always count on Ishii to go out there and have a banger. And you just look at the year he's had, the never title matches with Shingo, his performances in New Japan Cup, that match of Hiromu was awesome. And then even like some of the never 6-man stuff that he's doing with Yoshihashi and Goto, like they've brought some life to that never division and been having, some great matches in that division. Another great G1, had that outstanding, kind of closing moment there with Jay White and beat Jay in that big main event to knock Jay out of the tournament. And I just felt like Ishii, once again, just had another great year, and he's going to end up, stuck in probably a gauntlet match at the Dome. But yeah, and Shingo was right. Shingo I put second, but yeah, those two guys were just killing it in ring this year.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think I would have gone with Tomohiro Ishii, but that's because I sort of do emphasize just the overall in-ring work. But normally we have someone that I think is a clear runaway winner because they've kind of dominated in all areas. And this year I didn't think we had that. We had, I feel like, candidates who were strong in different areas. And so it kind of opened up the field. And I think that's why we saw this, pretty close, point total between the first and second place here. But, that tweet that came out recently showed all the cage match rings, and like out of the top 300 matches, Ishii had 17 of them. So I was like, man, that to me, that would have been enough maybe to put him over. But like, it also shows us that we don't always have our finger on the pulse of what maybe the general fan population, is sort of thinking, which is kind of why we do these awards, because we want to make it so it's not just me and Jeremy like handing it over to Ishii, but sort of just letting the fans speak and letting the population be heard. So I think that's gonna do it for this one. Tetsuya Naito is your 2020 Keepin It Strong Style Wrestler of the Year.
So now we'll move on to Match of the Year. Come in third place with 224 points. We had Will Osprey versus Hiromu Takahashi from Wrestle Kingdom 14. Coming in second place with 434 points, we had Kazuchika Okada versus Kota Ibushi from Wrestle Kingdom 14. And then our first place winner, 501 point. The winner and the Keeping It Strong Style 2020 Match of the Year, Kazuchika Okada versus Tetsuya Naito from Wrestle Kingdom 14, Night 2.
Very, very, very interesting results here. I mean, I think it was pretty predictable the way the year went, that these three matches would end up being, the ones that were in contention, being the fact that they were, at Wrestle Kingdom, which were critically acclaimed shows. And, this is pre-COVID. So, we still had like full reactionary crowds and everything like that. It was, a packed out Tokyo Dome. I think what it really came down to was, did you think that the in-ring action of Okada and Ibushi, you know, for a lot of people, they're saying this like one of the greatest matches they ever saw, or was it the overall story and moment of Okada Naito, which in its own right was also a fantastic match, and I think probably deserving of match of the year. But for a lot of people, they said it wasn't quite as, you know, quite as high or like up to the exact same level of, say, like Okada Ibushi. So it's going to be interesting how that one played out, and pretty close point variance here as well. But it looks like, you know, more people preferred the story of Naito kind of triumphing, you know, coming back after those two previous Wrestle Kingdom losses to Okada and finally winning the big one, you know?
Yeah. What do you think, Rich?
I kind of agree with a lot of what Josh said there. To me, like it's really tough. It's really, really close. And you know, your voting kind of reflected that as well. With, to me, Okada and Ibushi, I liked better as a wrestling match, like a pure like bell to bell wrestling match. Okada and Ibushi was probably my favorite, you know, actual like legit in-ring, you know, wrestling match of the year. But there's a lot that went into Okada and Naito, and it's like one of these weird ones that, like, you know, when I do want to watch both of them before I do my official like match of the year votes, and then we do our Voices of Wrestling match of the year coming up here in January, and I'm really between those two because I really, really think that you know, Okada and Ibushi, and I'm glad to see the voting, you know, your voting pool put it as high as it did, because I think that's a match that and again, I have no idea how it's going to go. I don't know how our match of the year is going to go, but I can really see that match maybe being out of the top 10, maybe not getting as many votes, mostly because people just remember Okada and Naito. They just remember, you know, these, and that, because obviously it is an incredible match, but then the next day there was like an equally incredible to maybe more, you know, more people, you know, more incredible, more, you know, kind of impactful match that happened the very next day. So it's tough to judge that one, but to me, it's really hard. It is really hard to decide which of these two, and I see that your voters kind of had the same thing too, because Okada and Naito, it's got symbolism, it's got an important moment, it's again, we say all that, and it was also a really, really good wrestling match as well, like an incredible wrestling match. I think I like Okada and Ibushi a little bit better, but I'm kind of right now going to be a coward and say I don't know which one I'm eventually going to vote for, because I really do want to watch both of them in context and watch them, you know, in December as well, and just say, okay, cool. Knowing everything that I know and knowing how the year went or whatever, how do these still kind of hold up for me? But in the moment, I liked Okada and Ibushi a little bit more. But I'm very curious to go back and rewatch both of those. And I really think your top three is exactly the top three that I would have for New Japan this year as well. I think it's no question. It's helped out a lot, obviously, by, you know, those are crowds and man, going back and watching crowd wrestling, it's like, you know, it's a lot. You're like, oh man, this is how it's supposed to be. Like, the people are making noise and things are happening. So yeah, I think those really are kind of head and shoulders above anything else that happened in the rest of the year, because the rest of the year was always kind of trying to catch up with, you know, having crowds and the clap crowds and stuff. And it really does take away from New Japan Pro Wrestling in particular.
It's not quite the same thing, but it sort of reminds me of like in 1991, if you're looking at WWF, there maybe like two of their top matches, you've got Perfect and Hart from SummerSlam, but then you've got Warrior and Savage from WrestleMania, and it's like probably the better in-ring match is the SummerSlam match. But
sure.
Many people are like so engrossed with the story and so engrossed with the moment and the implications and the build and the fallout and everything that kind of surrounds that retirement match. I think that there's a lot of parallels between that situation and this one as well.
Yeah, it's a great comp. Yeah, because it is like, you know, on its face, the Hart and Perfect match is just like a tremendously better kind of pro, you know, nerdy kind of pro wrestling, you know, ring work type match or whatever. But I mean, it stands out as like an incredible match. But then, yeah, there's so much emotion and so much going in to that Warrior and Savage one. So that's a perfect comp to me. Yeah, it's definitely maybe what you value in wrestling. And you know, with that said, both of those matches were really good. And both of these matches were really good as well. I really honestly don't think you can go wrong with either of these two as your matches of the year. You know, some other ones that I might take a little bit of issue with if people did, you know, say, oh, my favorite match was, you know, when I Evil and Naito from Shingo, I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, I'm not quite sure. But it looks like, you know, looking at your guys' voting pool, it looks like people pretty much nailed what I would consider the top tier matches of the year.
Yeah,
Jeremy, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, not surprised that these three matches finished pretty much all the reasons you guys mentioned. Yeah, these were, you know, three of the best in-ring matches in the year. Perfect condition, big stage, you know, hot crowd. Both Okada matches, I both gave 5 stars to both of those matches. So honestly, it was a toss-up for me. Either one could have win. I did go with Okada Ibushi first, just because from an in-ring standpoint, like you guys mentioned, I just thought that was just a little bit better as far as the in-ring standpoint. But then when you look at Okada Naito, like I was mentioning earlier, when you go back to Wrestle Kingdom 12 and Naito failing to beat Okada there, and then this whole kind of journey and odyssey of him trying to get the title back, trying to finally beat Okada at the Dome, it was just such a big kind of culmination on that night, and Naito finally doing it. So it's definitely a very emotional, more story-filled there, and probably one of the best performances Naito had this year. And so, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong going with either one of those matches.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next of what we like to call the big three. So let's talk about the show of the year.
So show of the year, coming in third place with 183 points, G1 Climax 30, Night 13. Coming in second place with 564 points, Wrestle Kingdom 14, Night 1. And then your first place with 583 points are Keeping It Strong Style 2020 Show of the Year, Wrestle Kingdom 14, Night 2.
I'll throw it to you guys here.
Go ahead, Rich.
All right, I'll go first. I was kind of talking about this on another show, this weekend as well. And to me, I like Wrestle Kingdom Night 1 a little bit better because to me, it just had that string of, final three matches that, you got Hiromu and Will. And I like Jay White and Naito a lot as well. So I think that helps. I think that is probably a big determining factor of whether, you vote Night 1 or Night 2. But I like that match a lot. So you got those two matches in a row, and then it concludes with, again, a match that I'm really, really considering, voting my match of the year, in Okada and Ibushi. So I thought that run that, and really honestly, that Night 1 had the Archer Moxley match, which I really enjoyed as well. So that, 4-match run is pretty tough to mess with. So I would vote Night 1 as my match of the year, but I absolutely understand why your voters voted Night 2. Night 2 definitely stands on its own in terms of having great matches, and then it culminates in obviously that incredible moment of Naito winning the titles, and then another incredible moment too of Kenta coming out and beating him up and that sort of stuff. So there was just a lot of emotion and a lot of really cool stuff that happened on Night 2. So I really don't think you can go wrong with either one of these, but I am definitely going with Night 1 as my favorite of the year.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, Rich. I also went with Night 1 for my show of the year. Let's mention you had that incredible main event with Okada and Ibushi. You have the Hiromu Osprey matchup. You have the first Liger retirement matchup. And yeah, overall, I think from top to bottom, it was just a very solid card. Like, you couldn't go wrong with that card. But I definitely understand why Night 2 might have edged it out from Night 1 for some people. You had the Jericho Tanahashi match. You had Liger's last match, him teaming with Sano to take on Hiromu and Ryu Lee. And then also the big kind of moment at the end with Naito beating Okada. I think definitely Night 2 probably is etched in more people's memories because of the big title win, like you mentioned, the Kenta angle and Kenta ruining that moment and just leaving us like, what's happening next kind of moment there.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. For me, I slightly preferred Night 1, but it's really splitting hairs between the two shows because they're both really great. I think the fact that they got the big payoff to the multi-year long story between Naito and Okada probably makes a huge difference as to why that night might have won. The other thing too, I think that show has going for it is there's 7 title matches. There's a lot more singles matches. It is the better on paper card, as opposed to you've got a lot of multi-man matches, a lot of tag team matches on the first night. Where I think the first night excels is that it just peaked higher with some of those top end singles matches. Not to say that the second night wasn't good. They're just there were a couple matches that I thought could have been better. Maybe I think also the fatigue of going to the shows back to back. I think we talked about this last year, was that to me it felt like the crowd was generally a little bit more quiet on the second night, except for obviously the main event. But until that main event, it felt like the people were a little bit worn out, which is to be expected when you've got 2 big Tokyo Dome matches or shows like this back to back. But both shows were awesome. One thing I wanted to say before we move on, very often those G1 nights are usually incredible, but because there's so many of them that are incredible and so many of them get nominated, they kind of usually just kind of get left out in the cold.
Yeah, they cannibalize themselves a lot.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And Night 13, even though it didn't get all the votes in the world, it really outdid most of the other G1 nights by far with 183 points total. It does that night 13 night, a lot of people have kind of like hyped it as being one of the best G1 nights ever. I don't know if I totally agree with that, but it's definitely up there. So, I just want to give a little shout out to the to a little engine that got a lot of votes there.
Yeah, it was well deserved. That's one that I brought up when I was talking with people the other day about shows of the year. I said that night 13 is really, and I think what was important about that night too, is it really gave a lot of people confidence that this company still can like deliver these big time moments, even if the crowds are subdued, and even during a pretty weird spring and a pretty weird summer for New Japan. It was nice. And I think I'm with you, Josh. I think there are better G1 nights all time. Like, I don't think I would put it anywhere near the pantheon of like, you're back in your 2013 or 2014.
Yeah.
6 straight matches that were all like just fucking great.
There's that one night, G1 24. I don't remember the night, but it's like, there's literally like 8 4-star matches.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And this one is in in the conversation for like one of the better ones of maybe recent memory, but it's certainly, it helped by this year with so many down years. But I'm glad it did get some love though, and I'm glad it did finish third, because it really does, I think, stand above pretty much anything else from the G1 and pretty much anything else from the entire spring and summer and then fall of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I'm glad it got in there.
Yeah, and I think another reason why this night gets a kind of ton of praise and people are saying it's one of the best nights ever, I think at this point we're really kind of just thirsty for like a normal G1.
For sure. Oh, no doubt. Yeah, we're just like, come on, they got to be good, right? They're so good, right? It's like, oh yeah, they are so good. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I wish you would have said hungry as opposed to thirsty.
Hungry, thirsty, we're both. We wanted the great action. Your buddy Lanza, he's waiting for that get into it moment. And,
right. And I think it was finally that night that I think it finally did happen. So
right, and I think we're as fans just desperate to want to throw 4.5, 5 stars on matches. We want that action that we're accustomed to the G1. So when we got this night 13 with the awesome Okada Shingo main event, you had the violent Ibushi Suzuki matchup. You had Osprey and Taiji having a good match. Cobb and Ishii, and then Jay White and Yujiro was very quick and out of the way. And so overall from this year, it was definitely one of the best nights.
Well, that is going to do it for show of the year. Let's talk about the Junior of the Year.
Yep, so the Jushin Thunder Liger Junior of the Year coming in third place with 373 points, one half of Roppongi 3K. Show coming in second place with 378 points, El Desperado. And then coming in first, and our winner of the 2020 Jushin Thunder Liger Junior of the Year with 811 points goes to Hiromu Takahashi.
Wow. That's a huge point variance. It's well deserved. I think universally most people kind of assumed that Hiromu was going to win this award. I think this might be the second time he's actually won Junior of the Year for our awards. I'm going to go through and look, but I mean, the work he did in the New Japan Cup, his early run, the match with with Will Ospreay, the match with Ryu Lee, the feud with Ishii Mori. I mean, here's the thing with I was going to mention this when we talked about Wrestler of the Year, but I kind of forgot to, so it's good I could put it in here. Had they decided to put Hiromu in that G1, I think we would have had a really close race between him and Naito for Wrestler of the Year. But, it's sort of like you guys always say on Voice of Wrestling, it's like you can't really count anything until the G1 happens, because you just, that really invalidates what a lot of people have done prior to that. And I think that's what we saw here. But I mean, congratulations to Hiromu. I mean, he pretty much carried the junior division literally all year long.
Yeah, this is an all-time junior year for Hiromu. So I think honestly, he probably should have gotten 100% of the votes. Like, for being like, there's nothing against Sho, who I like, and Desperado, who I like as well. But or Ishimori, who got some votes as well. I mean, it is no question that this is Hiromu Takahashi's year. I mean, this is an all-time great junior year, I think, in terms of star power, in terms of what he was able to do. I mean, this is on the level of some of those classic Liger years where it was like, Liger was as important as some of the heavyweights. And it felt like at times this year that Hiromu was as important as a lot of the heavyweights. And it's why I've always said that, he will, whatever they decide to do with Hiromu in the next few years or next year or whatever, is whether they decide that they need a token, move up to heavyweight, or my thing is that he just transcends it, that it's just it doesn't matter what he is, he's Hiromu. It just doesn't matter what his size is, doesn't matter how much he weighs, doesn't matter what division he's in. It's just Hiromu. I mean, he's one of the top stars in the company, no matter what, if he's a junior or not. We'll see if they do that, or if they, make up, hey, he gained 10 pounds and now he's heavyweight. Yay, like there we go, like that sort of thing. But I don't think you need to with him. Like you really don't, because he's just that good and he's just that talented. So to me, this was like an all-time great junior year. So yeah, I have no issues whatsoever with Hiromu winning. And I really just have to ask, I'm looking at the voting here. I see Rocky Romero. Does he vote in these awards or no? I like Rock. Like, no offense to Rocky Romero, but like, I don't know if I voted second.
Well, we are good friends with Rocky Romero. We've had him on the show before, but
speaking about it, because
it was pretty much like, if you notice, there's only 5 people that we even nominated. We were like, Rocky did all that. He obviously wasn't in Japan, but we're like, he kind of needs to be on the ballot for kind of just holding things down over in America for whatever that's worth, Yeah,
and the New Japan Strong, like all joking aside, the New Japan Strong stuff, he's one of the better guys on that show. So it's like, and he's been in, he's in with, Feud with Danny Limelight and stuff. Like he's one of the actual guys that feels like he's not just there to kind of fill out the show. He feels like an important cog in that. So yeah, all joking aside, like no, he's definitely a pretty important guy. But I just find that funny. I'm like, like, you know what? I'll put myself for a second place. Like, he couldn't vote for himself first in good conscience. Like he knew that he didn't belong in first. But he could put himself.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like if he was voting, like he didn't even vote for. He got no first place vote. So like,
he couldn't do that. Yeah, he's an honest man.
Yeah, I'll have to look through the emails and see if his came through on the ballot.
R. Romero,
Rocky Rock at NJPW. So Jeremy, I went through the records. Out of the last 4 years, 3 times. This is the 3rd time. Jushin Thunder Liger Jr. of the Year. We might need to change the name of this award to the Hiromu Takahashi Jr.
Oh, wow.
Man, yeah. Hiromu, just an incredible performer. And I think, unlike with Wrestler of the Year, we were saying, there wasn't one guy that kind of covered all areas. You had guys that were really good in ring, and you kind of had guys that were really star power. But I feel here, Hiromu kind of covered all the bases. Like, you're looking for a junior with great in ring, Hiromu was there. You're looking for a junior with star power, Hiromu was there. Fan connectivity, drawing ability, and even look at the way he was positioned in the Best Super Junior tournament. Even not being the champion, he was in the majority of the semi-mains and main events, and just shows you how high the company sees him and just what an asset he is for the company, and just, literally being the face of the junior division and holding that division together this year, especially a year when a division that's really utilizes the imports and the Gaijin wrestlers, we didn't have a lot of that this year. So it was Hiromu who was kind of holding it down.
Yeah. How do you think they drew Budokan?
Yeah.
You're gonna get yourselves in trouble. I'm not gonna respond to that one.
I mean, it's the truth. This is a no flex zone. We don't lie on this podcast.
I love it. Yeah, that's good.
So, obviously, just real quick mention, Sho and Desperado, 2 of the other guys that were here during the pandemic time, kind of, really made a name for themselves working like in the Never division, working in the, what was it called? The J Cup. What's wrong with me? Why do I forget names?
Best Saber Juniors?
No, the
New Japan Cup?
The New Japan Cup. God, what's wrong with me? But yeah, they just, I think both of those guys really positioned themselves well. We kind of see that reflected in how they were booked in the Super Juniors this year. Because I don't know that in the past that they've ever been booked quite so high. And I think a lot of it has to do with the goodwill that they built up throughout the year. Obviously, this was like we've talked about, a one-man race, but I just want to throw a quick shout out to Despy and Sho. I think they did good work, and I see good things for them in the future.
Yeah, it was all in all, I think it was a good year for the juniors. I think they really did show out and have a good year. But yeah, it's like, I'm glad you did that, because Sho and Ishimori and Desperado all deserve some love. But yeah, it's nothing against them that like Hiromu is just like in another stratosphere just because he's like a once in a lifetime all-time great wrestler. And it's just amazing that this guy's a year, like we didn't have him last year. This
right.
It's, oh my God, that not only coming back is awesome, but coming back and like not missing a beat and being the exact same. Because that was my worry, is that he's going to come back, but it's like he's going to be careful. And I think what was awesome is like that first, I think it was the first spot he literally did in the ring was just like, throw his neck into like the corner.
Yes.
Like, cannonball. You're like, all right, we're good. He's going to be Hiromu till literally he dies in the ring. So that's fine. I mean, you want him to be what he wants to be, and that is obviously what that man was born to do. So it's like, whatever, you know what? Let's go for it. I did not want a safe, careful Hiromu Takahashi. That's not going to be
something else interesting. Also, I want to point out with Taiji Ishii, current junior champion. He's been junior champion pretty much since June, and did not place in the top 3. And I just think Ishimori is one of those guys. We talked about it on the show. I feel like he's one of these guys. He's obviously super talented, but doesn't always maybe live up to his potential when you see his name. Like, oh, Ishimori, this is going to be a great match. And sometimes he kind of sleepwalks his way through matches. And
he's been doing that for a decade, really. I mean, if you followed even his early Noah years, or really not even his early Noah years, his entire Noah career, it was the same thing. You're like, oh, Taiji Ishimori, let's go. And like, there are times where he is just fucking incredible, and you're like, yes, all right. And then most of the time he's not, and you're like, oh yeah, like you do have to kind of remind yourself that the guy looks like $1 million, and sometimes he wrestles like $1 million, but a lot of times he doesn't, and you got to just kind of get ready. But it's a great point. He does kind of feel like when you mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah, he is the champ. Like for some reason I feel like Hiromu's the champion, but he's not. He's clearly, he's going to be in a few days. But
right,
it is amazing that Ishimori has like a 6-month title reign, and he's not even in consideration for the best junior of the year.
And you look at how he's booked the best of Super Juniors. A lot of times he was in the opening matches, not even semi-mains, barely in a main event. I think he might have like 1 or 2 main events, but mainly he's in that first half of the card, which is kind of, you would think the junior champion would get higher placement.
Yep. I don't have much more to add there. I think you guys definitely summed it up perfectly. Let's talk about the tag team of the year.
All right, so tag team of the year coming in third place with 256 points. We have the 3-man unit of Hiroki Goto, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yoshihashi, our current never Openweight 6-man champions. Coming in second place with 401 points, the team of Golden Ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi. And then coming in first, our 2020 Tag Team of the Year with 852 points, the current IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, the Dangerous Tekkers, Zack Saber Jr. and Taiji.
This came as no surprise to anybody. Whatever kind of criteria you want to judge on for Tag Team of the Year, it does seem like Dangerous Tekkers sort of excelled. If you're looking for someone that's entertaining, going to cut dynamic promos in the back, it's going to be Despy and not Despy. It's going to be Taichi and Zack. Those guys just seem to kind of understand each other, have this really great rapport. They're very witty and snappy. When it comes to like kayfabe, they won the tag team titles for the first time, and defended them multiple times. They were easily the MVPs of the World Tag League. They were in one of the most heralded feuds of the year, the feud with Golden Ace, which I think is one of the things that definitely put them over. But then night in and night out, even when they're not just in regular 2-on-2 tags, but when they're in those Suzuki-gun 8-man, Suzuki-gun 10-mans, they kind of always stood out as being like one of the big focal points all year long in those matches, getting their shit in, making their little like stories, kind of felt and heard, especially with the feud with Golden Ace. And they just kind of dominated the tag team scene all year, which is funny because so many people talked about Golden Ace and how, getting this mega team together was going to be the thing that revitalized the tag team division. But a lot of people it almost felt like Dangerous Tekkers sort of sleptwalked into the top position. And before you knew it, suddenly it's like, oh, wow, they're the champions. Oh, wow, they're the best tag team in the company. Oh, wow. They might be one of the best tag teams in the world in 2020. And I think it's definitely well-deserved.
Yeah, I think to me, they're really by default. I think you kind of have to vote Dangerous Tekkers. I think obviously Golden Ace, I think had a pretty good year, but it felt like a very incomplete year for them. And it felt like, obviously once the shutdown happened, they did not go back to Golden Ace. they were still kind of there, but it wasn't quite the same. They weren't quite pushed on the same level. And Tekkers were, pushed earlier in the year, pushed later in the year, had really good matches throughout the year as well. I'm not like the biggest fan of that. I think they're fine. I think they're pretty damn good. I know a lot of people really, really like them, but I have no issue with them being the tag team of the year because I just don't know if there was a ton of competition in New Japan this year, and it was I'd say a pretty down year for New Japan's tag division, and the World Tag League didn't really do a ton. Even though I didn't mind the tournament, but it didn't do a ton to be like, oh, this team is clearly like the team of the year. It was pretty much like, oh yeah, Tucker's is definitely it. So yeah, they rightfully won this in a blowout.
That is disrespectful to Goto, Ishii, and Hashi.
Yeah, I like the number 6 man getting some love here. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I think too, one thing that benefited Dangerous Tekkers also was the fact that, you know, some of the top Gaijin teams weren't there. You know, you didn't have Finjuice in Japan. You didn't have Girls of Destiny in Japan. Those are some of the top teams that are usually in the mix. You know, in the beginning of the year, we saw it was mainly God and Finjuice that are kind of rivaling for a tag team title at Wrestle Kingdom and then New Beginning. And then they kind of shift to do the Dangerous Tekkers Golden Ace thing. But also with the pandemic, we didn't get God or Finjuice back until, you know, a couple months ago. And so also that left the door open for Dangerous Tekkers to really take the reins and, you know, come up and be the top tag team with that feud with Golden Ace. And I'm a fan of Dangerous Tekkers. I really like Taiji and Saber together. I like their work a lot. I think they gel really well as far as in-ring, and like Josh mentioned, their post-match stuff is always pretty funny. And so, I would have gone Dangerous Tekkers all the way here.
I actually voted Goto, Ishii, and Yoshihashi as number 1. I really dug them this year, but I went number 2, Dangerous Tekkers.
Okay, yeah, I think I went number 2, Golden Ace, and then number 3, I went Goto, Ishii, and Yoshihashi.
Oh man, you're so accurate with your voting. So let's move on to one of my favorite categories, the Karl Gotch Strong Style Award.
All right, so Karl Gotch Strong Style Award, 3rd place with 455 points. The Stone Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii.
That's shocking.
Which is an upset because Ishii has won our...
He wins this every year.
Rightfully so, yeah.
Come in 2nd place with 497 points, Minoru Suzuki. And then our winner in 1st place with 542 points, the current never openweight champion, the Dragon, Shingo Takagi.
Wow. You know what's crazy about this? So, like I mentioned, Ishii has won this every year, except the first year we ever did it, which was 2017. He was edged. I have the amount here. He lost to Shibata by 9 points. So it was like neck and neck. So yeah, the fact that he lost, but not only lost, but like was, you know, unseated by both Suzuki and Shingo tells you a lot about this year. And one of the biggest things is like, we praised the juniors for the work they did, but the reality is, in terms of actual junior work, there was very little this year because the pandemic happened and they had to basically convert to doing open weight matches most of the year. And so since we didn't have a Super Juniors and we didn't have very many junior matches, we ended up with just what I call like the strong style year, where people were just beating the shit out of each other all year long, and it fucking ruled. And and Shingo was the top guy. He might not have won the MVP here this year for Wrestler of the Year, but I mean, I think he deservedly won the the strong style award. And I mean, I have no qualms with this at all. I mean, he fucked everybody up.
Yeah, I'm right. You know, it's actually interesting. I was going to mention almost exactly what you said, Josh, with this award. I think you get a lot more competition this year because a lot more people had to sort of channel that inner strong style in them. And you couldn't just go out there and have, a bunch of really cool matches, a bunch of really cool moves, and a bunch of kickouts. Like, you had to get in there and especially in the early days, especially in New Japan Cup, you just had to get out there and beat the fuck out of each other and grunt a bunch. And that's exactly what these three men did is beat the hell out of each other and grunt a lot. And I thought, I love it. I love that Shingo won this award this year because I think he was the best at beating the hell out of people and grunting a lot this year. But really, I mean, really, you could not have gone wrong with any of these three guys. I thought Shingo was a little bit better than the other two this year, but it's not saying, I mean, these are three of like my favorite wrestlers in New Japan this year. Three of the guys that I enjoyed the most, and three of the guys that I think adjusted the most and the best to the no crowds or the clap crowds or whatever, because they were just not dependent on, and they could have wrestled in an empty warehouse the rest of the year and it wouldn't matter because it was just these dudes going out there beating the hell out of each other and slapping each other and grunting a lot. And that can work in front of 10,000 people or 2 people. And that's what I think really helped with these three. So yeah, no bad choice out of these three. Any combination of the three, I'd probably agree with, to be honest.
Yeah, it's something I mentioned earlier on the show when we were kind of reviewing the New Japan Cup shows. Like, the New Japan Cup shows, a lot of these matches that featured these guys, it was very similar to what we saw with the UFC and what we're still seeing with the UFC as they're running empty arena shows. Like, we're still seeing some really good fights, and, like, you can get into it because the focus is in the octagon with two competitors. These guys are, hitting each other hard, trying to knock each other out, submit each other. And I don't think the empty arena really impacted the presentation of the UFC so much. And so when you look at some of the empty arena stuff and New Japan Cup stuff, when you have these guys like Ishii and Shingo and Suzuki just slapping the crap out of each other, forearming each other, headbutting each other, crazy, suplexes and brain busters, like, and the focus was all on them in the ring. There wasn't a lot of outside brawling. Like, it fit so well to that style. And so, yeah, the Never style really just kind of elevated itself in this empty arena, clap crowd environment. And yeah, it didn't matter. It could have been a full building, empty building. These guys are still going to go out there and kill each other. And that's one thing I love about Shingo is that it doesn't matter where he is on the card, when he's opening, closing, what size arena it is. He's a guy that kind of goes out there and gives it 100% no matter what the spot is and goes out there. We talk about, like, in the World Tag League when he was teaming with Sonata and just how his energy kind of rubbed off on Sonata and made Sonata try harder in that tournament. Yeah. And you just look from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, Shingo just absolutely incredible. And even like some of the open weight matches he had with Sho and Desperado, and really making that Never title open weight and challenging juniors, which is something that fans have kind of been clamoring for a while now. They wanted to see juniors and heavyweight mix it up, and with Shingo just recently leading the junior division, we were able to get some of those matches.
Yeah, we've always called the Never title the strong style heavyweight title of the world, and he exemplified that this year. The work he did with Ishii, the work he did with Sho, like you mentioned, Desperado, matches that kind of got forgot with Goto. That
hey, Josh, you're breaking up pretty bad.
I apologize. What I was saying was, with the fact that most of the other belts were tied up in different situations this year, we only really had two major singles heavyweight belts, this and the IWGP. And for my money, the run that Shingo had was better than the run that Naito or Evil had with that belt this year. To me, he made it the must-see prestigious title within the company, which is, that's a big deal.
Yeah, did an excellent job elevating the Never title. And I think, the Never title has been my favorite title this whole year. And so from there, we can go on to Feud of the Year. So our final three here for Feud of the Year, coming in third place with 278 points. We had Jay White versus Kota Ibushi. Coming in second place with 355 points, we had Shingo Takagi versus Minoru Suzuki. And then our winner at first place with 388 points, the 2020 Feud of the Year, Golden Ace versus Dangerous Tekkers.
I'm a little surprised. What do you guys think about this one?
What do you think, Rich?
I think
I'm sorry, I was on mute there. But to me, I don't know. I don't know if I would honestly have a vote here. I might abstain from voting Feud of the Year. I just don't think there was a feud that really resonated with me in New Japan this entire year. And a big reason why I think I was probably a little bit more down on New Japan than I had been any other year since I really started watching. But there's just not much there that I really loved. Like, Shingo Suzuki was cool, but it was pretty short. I think Suzuki and Moxley at the beginning of the year, that was pretty cool, but again, that was really short. Kenta and Naito was really, really cool, but again, that was really short. And I think by default you have Golden Ace and Tekkers, but I don't know if I really like that feud all that much. So it's like, I don't know what to vote. I truthfully do not believe, I don't know what I would vote for here if given a choice, because it's a lot of feuds that I think were pretty good, but none that I could truly call a feud of the year, a feud that definitely defined New Japan in 2020. So I might have just done a no vote here, to be honest. It's a real tough year for feuds, I think.
I think for me, I can say it. I would have gone Shingo Suzuki because I thought it was the best 3-match series in ring. But there's definitely that drawback that you mentioned there, Rich, that it was kind of short. It was a little disconjointed. The only match that I felt like had a true, genuine build was the first one. There was a lot of hype for that Jingu Stadium match, and then after that, maybe not so much for the second one. So it just kind of happened. But with Golden Ace and Dangerous Tekkers, what makes sense to me is they had the 2 matches that were both on major cards, but then they had the long series of matches that were like multi-mans in between. They also had 2 big angles where Golden Ace got jumped by Dangerous Techers pre-pandemic and then post-pandemic, and then just all the little storytelling stuff they did in the builds to him, with Tanahashi not knowing if he, was holding back Ibushi, and Ibushi trying to become God Capital, like actual God. So I mean, this is the one feud that I feel like had both good matches and actual behind the scenes, build, and people seem to be engrossed with it, where some of these other ones had drawbacks. Maybe they were like a 1-match series or a 2-match series, or maybe they were all story, but the match wasn't so great. This was the one that I felt like was the most balanced, that I kind of had an inkling that it might win this award.
Yeah, we had a pretty hard time putting this list together because, like you mentioned, Rich, a lot of these feuds were either really short. They're either like 2 matches, or the matches were spread out throughout the year. There weren't a ton of angles. There weren't a ton of promos. And so, yeah, it's kind of, there's not one of these feuds that's like, this is the, New Japan feud. But like Josh mentioned, I do think Golden Ace Dangerous Techers is probably the closest thing that had series of matches between just those two teams, and then the multi-man team matches, and then all the different backstage promos you got with Ibushi and Tanahashi. And so I think from everything on this list, it's probably the most well-rounded feud.
Yo, shout out to the 3 people that voted Yumura Tsuji.
I love it. I was just about to bring that up. Honestly, reading that, I was like, you know what? That would probably be my vote. Is like, the G1 C block, a little bit of like, undercard, going back and forth. You look at the records. There's a lot of fun in those Young Lion feuds. So yeah, shout out to them. I did not vote in these awards, but if I did, that may have been my pick for number 1, just out of default. So.
Yeah, one thing I want to give a shout out to that didn't get a ton of votes was the Will Osprey Zack Saber feud. It's one of these feuds that kind of gets forgotten about because it was at the beginning of the year pre-COVID. And this,
it ruled.
Yeah, it was for the Rev Pro title, and they had the first match in New Beginning in Sapporo, and then they had the follow-up match in Rev Pro. But there was also like a ton of multi-mans. There was that great over-the-top rope 10-man that Osprey won to get the rematch at Rev Pro, and there was just a lot of promo and backstage stuff that surrounded that match. There was like a good handful of matches that built in between their 2 title matches, and I really enjoyed their matchups this year.
Right there with you. Let's talk about the big Van Vader Gaijin of the Year award.
Yes, and like we mentioned on the preview show with Zack Saber Jr., we can't remember.
We don't know what happened.
We can't remember if we purposely left him out or if it was just a goof. Either way, Saber was not on the ballot this year. So here's what we have for our final 3. So coming in third with 296 points, the Hatchet of the Empire, Jeff Cobb. Coming in second place, 501 point, we have Will Osprey. And then coming in first, our winner, 799 points, and the 2020 Big Van Vader Gaijin of the Year, Switchblade Jay White.
I don't know, had we had Zack Saber on the ballot, if it would have made a huge difference or not. But, I mean, this guy got almost 800 points, like 311 people voted him first place, which is like the majority of the voters. So it's like, or maybe not. No, I'm sorry. It's like 100 something, but still that's a lot. So yeah, Jay White ran away with this shit. And it's also crazy because he was like not even in Japan for a good portion of the year.
Yeah. So I think it's a tough award this year, obviously more than any other year, just because, most of these people weren't able to be here for a lot of the year. So yeah, you really have to split, it's the first half of the year and then the G1 and on. And yeah, I have no issues with the votes. Like you said, it would have been interesting to see where Zack Saber Jr. had landed. Because I think he's got a pretty good case for it almost by default, because he was somebody that felt like he was kind of there most of the time. But I think Jay White's a good pick too, because we can't forget what he was doing at the beginning of the year, and he main evented at Wrestle Kingdom and played a big role in night 1 of Wrestle Kingdom. And then Will as well, I think, had a really good start to the year in terms of having the match with Hiromu, as we said, the Zack Saber Jr. match and some other stuff early in the year. And that's always tough, especially in this year, is to remember that January, February, and March, was this same calendar year and does belong, in the running here. And when you make those cases, I think, to me, those guys that you voted for definitely belong. And White, I think, had a really good, end of his year, and Will to a lesser extent as well. Even though the in-ring maybe wasn't at the level that we saw prior to the year, we saw him become an important figure in New Japan, and obviously make that leap up to, you know, running his own unit, and it's going to culminate at Wrestle Kingdom, obviously, with what should be an awesome match with Okada. So Will definitely belongs in the mix there as well.
I've got a feeling, had the controversy with the speaking out stuff not happen, maybe this point total is a little closer, or maybe even Will might even.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty good. Yeah, I mean, there are obviously a lot of people, for right or wrong. I'm not going to do that on this show, for God's sakes. We don't have enough time, and I don't want to do it. But no, like, yeah, for right or wrong or whatever, you know, whatever you think. There's definitely people, and again, like, I'm what you think about it, I can't tell you how to feel about somebody, but no, there's probably no doubt that you know, some of the votes that maybe would have went to Osprey in March have definitely been taken away and given to other people. So,
and I think something else that helps Jay White's case here too was being pretty much the biggest star on New Japan Strong. You know,
right? Oh yeah. When
he came in, it was like, oh wow, we actually have like a main event guy that's on this show. That's, you know, former IWGP champion and one of the top, you know, pillars of the promotion right now. And so that was kind of a big deal. And Bullet Club pretty much ran rampant on that show. And a lot of the storylines have been people feuding with Bullet Club, feuding with Jay White. So he kind of really held down Strong as far as a star power perspective.
And it was in the early days of the show when people probably still watched it.
Yeah, I'll admit myself, I have not kept up with the old Strong. So
let's talk about the faction of the year.
So coming in third place with 289 points, we have the Bullet Club. Coming in second place with 604 points, we have Suzuki-gun. And then our winners coming in first place, 716 points, the 2020 faction of the year, Los Ingobernables de Japón.
For the fourth year in a row.
The LIJ Memorial Award here for faction of the year. I mean, it is. I mean, it's definitely them. I mean, they were the most important faction the entire year. Key, you know, figures in main events, key figures in all the stories. Like this was a year of LIJ. I mean, it was Naito beginning of the year. You know, the evil stuff, Sonata being involved, Hiromu being involved. I mean, it is very clearly their year. And I think really votes for any other team, I think is mostly just because you like that team a little bit more. But I think objectively, like, you have to vote for LIJ here.
The one thing I will say, I definitely think LIJ deserves this award for all the same reasons that you just mentioned, Rich. But the one thing I will say that I noticed, they didn't really team together that much this year. Most years, we spent a lot of time talking about the 8-mans and 10-mans that they have, and, you know, how cohesive they are, and they're like probably the closest thing New Japan has to, like, maybe your classic like Dragon Gate sort of style, like tag team work. But like, they didn't really tag together that much this year. Like, we're kind of basing this based off popularity and then based off just general success of the faction, a la Chaos, you know. But not so much, like, I can't remember too many times where I saw all 5 members in the ring doing, you know, the salute and the golden roll call and stuff like that. You just didn't see it that much. It's mostly based off of individual successes that they had throughout the year.
Yeah, and I think, you know, looking at third place with Bullet Club, I think Bullet Club had a sneaky kayfabe successful year when you look at Evil joining and winning the New Japan Cup, winning double titles at Dominion. I know this doesn't count in this year, but you just had ELP winning the Super J Cup. I just feel like there's some other, like, kind of standout moments there with Bullet Club this year. Now you had Jay White winning the briefcase. So from a kayfabe perspective, I think Bullet Club had a good year that I think people might have kind of downplayed on.
Bro, when you're talking about sneaky, what about Suzuki-gun? You know, this 116 point variance is the closest anybody's ever gotten to unseating LIJ as faction of the year. And I mean, I don't remember if I voted Suzuki-gun number 1 or number 2, but I might have voted them number 1 just because I thought they had an awesome year. For various reasons. You know, we don't have to go into all of it to, you know, 'cause I don't want to make us go over time, but you know, I am wondering how much longer LIJ, you know, their dominance is going to be there, because it does kind of, there's a lot of people kind of jumping on the Suzuki-gun bandwagon these days.
Yeah, I think we've seen with, like, the emergence of, like, Dangerous Techers and how much people love, like, their backstage promo and their kind of banter. We've seen we got a lot of questions the last several weeks from listeners, like, you know, are Dangerous Techers, are they babyfaces now? Because everybody's really digging what they've been doing. And then you had Suzuki, who's had a great year with the Never title and his feuds with Shingo and Nagata. And then you had, Desperado.
Despy's at an all-time high. He's apparently the MVP of the Super Juniors.
And then, and also his junior tag stuff with Kanemaru. They won that mini, junior league tournament. So, Suzuki-gun had a great year as well.
They fucking rolled.
So, let's move on to most improved. So, coming in with third place with 309 points. Speaking of Suzuki-gun, Doki.
Robbery. This is robbery.
Coming in second place, 463 points, Taiji. And then coming in first place, 498 points, the 2020 most improved wrestler, Yoshihashi, the bag of socks.
I never thought we would see the day. This is a proud moment in the history of this show.
Yeah, this is actually, believe it or not, for such a weird year in pro wrestling, such a weird year in New Japan, there was a lot of guys that I think all deserve some credit here. And I think you named a lot of those ones here. Yoshihashi, I think, is a great pick. Taichi, who finished second, I really thought this year he became a complete package and a guy that I really enjoyed after not really enjoying his in-ring, always understanding the character and understanding his importance to the show, but really liking his in-ring this year. Dookie, as you said, really, really good year as well. I mean, he became a legit, decent guy on the roster after being kind of a laughing stock, the first year he was there. And then some other guys that you didn't mention, but I'm seeing on your voting here, I think Sho absolutely took another leap into another pantheon and proved that he could be a singles guy. And then I love the picks of Yuya Uemura and Yota Tsuji, particularly Yuya Uemura, who I think has really made himself very clearly a step ahead of all, of Gabriel Kidd, of Yota Tsuji, all those sort of guys. You could see it with this guy, and the way that they booked him this year, you can tell that they see it with him as well. So, despite the very weird year, I think there was a lot of guys that really improved their stock and really, I think, brought it this year for sure. So, there's a lot of good. I mean, really, there's 5 choices that if you voted for that guy number 1, I'd say, yeah, that sounds pretty good to me.
For years on this show, I just got a lot of flack for the vehement hatred that I spewed out at Yoshihashi, and I still believe to this day that it was well deserved. But I always said that if this guy ever turned the corner, we would change our tune, and he did turn the corner, and we have completely changed our tune. Suddenly, I'm marking out for Yoshihashi, which is something I never ever thought I would ever do, and just very impressed. It was an incredible moment seeing him win his first title and that entire little, never 6-man tag title tournament that they did. And then, the various title feuds that he's had since that time. And even, the G1 he had in the B block.
G1 was fire.
Night after night.
It was good.
Fucking
it was really good. Yeah.
And
so, I'm really glad. I'll let you guys go, but I loved it.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Doki. Doki is who I voted first place here. Like you mentioned, Rich,
hipster.
coming in last year, he was a laughing stock. There's a lot of people that were very hard on him, including myself. And he was coming in the best of Super Juniors, and you had some really top performers in that tournament last year, and so it's kind of big shoes for him to fill. But again, being a year where a lot of the juniors couldn't come into the country, he got a lot more time to shine this year. He was put in some little mini feuds. He feuded with Wato. He was in the Never 6-Man title feud. And then he was in Best of Super Juniors. And he just really stepped his game up. And it's just now he's a serious competitor now. Last year he was a stand-in for the tournament because you had Desperado breaking his jaw in that match with Jun Kasai. But now he's a guy he shouldn't be a replacement anymore. He should be a guy that's slotted in the tournament.
Jeremy, it's hard for me to vote for him as most improved when I already knew he was good from day one, right?
Yeah. Josh was ahead on the Doki curve.
I was way ahead. As soon as I saw him, everyone was giving him slack. I was like, I think he's pretty good, actually. Oh, man. You want to talk about New Japan of America MVP, which is a new award we have on this show?
Yep. So first year that we're doing New Japan of America MVP. Also, we had a lot with Strong, and also we had the map at the end of last year where they're planning on doing all.
I love the map.
I forgot about the map.
It says West, Mid, Texas.
The way we all designate the United States of America: West, Mid, and Texas.
Yeah.
Oh God, that was so great. God, how long? Oh, that seems like so long.
I know, it seems like 5 years ago.
Oh, God. Big plan.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Jeremy. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's good. So coming in third place here, 276 points. We had Carl Fredericks coming in So second place with 313
You messed up.
Yeah, so third place, 276 points, Carl Fredericks. Second place, 313 points, Switchblade Jay White. And then first place, the 2020 New Japan of America MVP, the current holder of the right to challenge for the U.S. title, Kenta.
How did the great TJP score so low?
I don't know. I think he was. People just saw him. His greatness was too much to handle that people couldn't vote for him.
I honestly, this is the one where I made fun of Rocky for getting votes for Junior of the Year. This is one that I think I'm kind of surprised your guys didn't put him a little bit higher. Like that's nothing against any of the three that finished in the top three, but I just think Rocky Romero, if you actually watch New Japan Strong, which again as you mentioned is few and far between those that are still kind of watching it, and myself included, who has missed a few weeks here and there. He's been to me like one of the best guys of that entire show, and it's no slight against these other guys. I haven't loved Kenta as much on that show, and that's probably why I would not vote him. It's because he's working a style that I don't really like. It's a style that I don't really love, but there's no question that he's like one of the most important guys in that entire company. I would have liked to have voted for Carl Fredericks, but I think he kind of fell off a little bit towards the end of the year, and it didn't quite seem like it was all together. And obviously now he has got the injuries and all that sort of stuff. So this is a tough award. There's a lot of dudes. Like you have a legit case for Danny Limelight, and I would like not tell you you're wrong. Like or ACH. If you wanted to vote ACH, I'd be like, yeah, all right, I could definitely listen to that. So it's a weird award where like honestly there's probably like 8 dudes that I would absolutely buy if you said this is my MVP of New Japan of America, which is a very weird year. And like we all predicted that Danny Limelight would be the potential MVP candidate for New Japan of America in 2020. So
well, I think go ahead, Josh.
I voted Rocky Romero as my number one.
There you go. So you're smart. I know.
But that's also to me he's the Ishii of the show, because it's like he's the best. He's the guy who's having the best matches, but he's also losing the most.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense. Long story short, I think when you talk about match quality in this company or on the show, it's pretty negligible because nothing really is. The secret is nothing actually is blowaway at all. So it's just a lot of 3-star matches across the board. So when you talk about Kenta, he won that big the New Japan Cup of America tournament. He won the briefcase. He's won several title defenses. And like you mentioned, Jeremy, Bullet Club's run roughshod. He's pretty much been the guy on the show for whatever that happens to be worth. I'm hoping next year if we end up having this award again, if they keep doing this stuff, maybe it'll be a little more prestigious. But I think it's hard to argue against Kenta just because there was just way more emphasis on him than anybody else.
Yeah, again, another guy when you're looking for star power for this show, when Kenta kind of came on the scene, it's like, all right, another kind of star that we saw in Japan. And so I think that's definitely helping his case, and obviously winning the U.S. briefcase and waiting to challenge Jon Moxley and having like 20 briefcase defenses on the way there. Also, that was kind of a key part of Strong. A guy I think I voted third, Clark Connors, I thought had a really good year.
Yeah.
And was a guy that stood out on Strong. He won their Lions Break Cup, and I mentioned it several times. He just reminds me of Chris Benoit, very intense, and it's that hard-hitting in-ring style, and I think he's going to be, graduating from Young Lion status pretty soon.
You should start saying Dynamite Kid is more politically correct.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, it's pretty bad when Dynamite Kid is the better of when there's 2 people and Dynamite Kid is the guy that you say, yeah, you should probably say him instead of the other guy. But Benoit isn't a rarefied air there. But no, he definitely, I'm with you. He definitely has that intensity in his wrestling as well. So I think he's the guy that I would also include on my most improved as well. I think he's been really, really, really good this year.
One thing with Kenta, it's kind of not fair because he's got a lot of experience working in small studios in America already.
You're right.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Newcomer of the Year. Oh, which is like the weirdest award we've had.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in the last several years, we've seen a lot of big names come into New Japan. Obviously, last year we had Moxley and Kenta. We have these kind of big guys coming in year after year, and this was a year, obviously, due to the pandemic, New Japan really couldn't bring guys in. You know, we heard guys like Brody Lee and Miro and all these guys, FTR, saying they want to come to New Japan, but obviously the opportunity wasn't there due to the pandemic. So kind of slim pickings this year for the nominees.
Yeah, and not just that, but like the current climate of wrestling, like we got people who are on this that are like already signed by other companies.
Yeah,
it's a pretty dire list. I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty horrendous list.
Give us the rundown.
Yes, it's pretty bad.
So coming in third place with 244 points, WWE's Alex Zane. Coming in second place with 433 points, way to the Grand Master, Master Wato. And then coming in first with 697 points, Gabriel Kidd.
Okay.
Yeah, that stinks. Yeah, you might as well just move on. I mean, when Wato is like, not only in the running, but like very close to winning the whole thing, you've really and the other newcomer is Gabriel Kidd. Well, I like Gabriel Kidd, but that's not the indictment. The indictment is that he's already been a young lion, gone on excursion, back with a spotlight push, and he lost to Gabriel Kidd. Right. You're right. That is actually a pretty good point. The graduate is below now the new young lion. Yeah, I love Dick Togo getting votes as well. I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, but like, it's just the idea that like 53-year-old fat Dick Togo is like
well, let me give you the logic here. So like, we looked at the history and we're like, Togo's been in New Japan for years.
Right.
But what we found when we went through all the cage matches, we're like, he's never worked more than like one tour at a time in the company and has never actually been signed. We're like, does he qualify? Is this the first time he's ever actually been like a real employee of the company? And we're like, yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So, we put him in the Groat Wire on.
The worst newcomer of the year is the Groat Wire.
Yeah.
One thing before, and I'll leave it to you, Jeremy. For the 4 people that voted Mysterioso Jr., you know what the fuck is up. People are sleeping on this dude. He is awesome, and I don't know if he'll ever be a big star, a big name, but he fucking rules, and 4 of you know it.
Yeah, like I already mentioned, pretty slim pickings here. I mean, majority of these guys were from the U.S. scene, so if you weren't watching Strong, you didn't really see Zayn, you didn't see Limelight, or Mysterioso Jr., and then if you're just really watching New Japan, it came down to that Gabriel Kidd, Dick Togo, and Master Wato. So obviously not the best choices here. I did vote Gabriel Kidd number 1. I thought Kidd improved a lot this year, and I think his kind of stuff with Nagata and some of the New Japan dads was really good this year, and obviously the C Block stuff with Tsuji and Yamura, I thought he looked really well here. Especially he started incorporating more of like the British style, that British background that he had into his wrestling, which has been awesome.
Well, let's talk about the Fighting Spirit Award.
Yes, the Fighting Spirit Award, which is the award that usually goes to somebody that's, overcome an injury, gone through adversity, or just kind of had an incredible year, like won multiple tournaments. So we had some pretty interesting...
It's whatever showed the most fighting spirit.
Yeah. So coming in third place, 251 points, Yoshihashi winning his first title.
Wow.
Coming in second place, 293 points, Liger's retirement matches in ceremony. And then our winner coming in first place with 470 points, Naito winning the double goal dash.
I'm a little shocked. Yeah, man. I don't know. There was some stuff here that I really like, Suzuki having one of the best career years for over 50 wrestler ever. Hiromu's run through the New Japan Cup as a junior, beating all those heavyweights. Ishii literally being the MVP of the 2 main men's singles tournaments, which I don't think has ever been done. I think that's some of the stuff that I was envisioning. Oh yeah, the company's handling of COVID-19. I literally thought that was going to be number 1, but apparently Naito beating these fools in the dome was a bigger deal. I don't know, man.
I'm going to go on full on hipster here. Honestly, I think my favorite thing of the entire year. And Hiromu's New Japan Cup run is definitely up there. But honestly, and it looked like it got a few votes from you guys, was Yuji Nagata and his run in the New Japan Cup. Where he only got one win, but it was, oh my God. The life, like that is one of those matches. And I just got done, I want to plug it a little bit later, but I'm working on, the New Japan ebook right now. And I just got done writing Yuji Nagata's entry, and I went back and watched that match that he wins. And oh my God, it's just like, there's no crowd there, but there feels like there's like 15,000 people there with him as he, breaks this, years had gone by where he hadn't won a single match in these New Japan Cups or whatever. And he does it. And then he goes into that next night with Okada, and he goes 20 minutes with Okada. And it's like, oh my God, he's going to do it. They're going to give that. And then it's like, oh yeah, he shouldn't win, but it was like, fuck, like he got into it. And like, to me, honestly, that what embodies fighting spirit to me was that run from Yuji Nagata. So it may be a little hipster if I decided to go with that, but honestly, to me, that was probably the moment that most encapsulates fighting spirit to me was Yuji Nagata's run in the New Japan Cup.
Yeah, 50-year-old guy. They call on him, and he can go. And then, that incredible upset over Suzuki was just awesome. He hits the Blue Justice driver, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, is he beating Suzuki? He beats Suzuki, and that sets up a return match down the line on the Summer Struggle Tour with the Never title match, which was awesome as well. So Nagata's had these awesome moments, and even like his Young Lion matches, like he slaps the crap out of those Young Lions as it beats them up, and he always looks great in that stuff too. So overall, I thought it was a great year for Nagata.
Well, I'm just glad that Rich said that, because on the Reddit, someone was like, resurgence. How did this guy resurge? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, shut up.
Yeah, ban him right now. I don't know who it is.
But, Naito winning the double gold dash, we spent a lot of time talking about it earlier in the show. But, again, it goes to show you how big of a deal this moment was to so many people that are in the fan base, because they voted it over a lot of things that, I'm sure the majority of them probably look at this list and be like, those were all excellent things, big moments, big memories. But, for the majority of the audience, like, this was the singular fighting spirit moment, which, like, I was surprised that it won, but it goes to show you, like, we don't always know how the product, like, affects other people,
Yeah, I think we just really underestimate Naito's popularity, because obviously I think a lot of people weren't really big into the whole double gold dash setup and how they got there and how they got Naito into the match. But I think at that point...
What do we know? Look at this.
But at this point, I think they were just happy that he was involved and that he ended up winning. And so that was just a very kind of like big moment for New Japan fans who have been watching Naito for a while and wanting him to finally get his moment.
Well, he got it. You want to talk about the Young Boy of the Year?
Yes.
The Josh Smith Award?
Yes, the Josh Smith.
I was going to say, you should give this one to yourself, right?
I am actually wrestling, right?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, so you got to count, right? You got to count for this.
One of these days.
Yeah, Josh is training at the.
You got tapes yet, or what? Can we?
I got a little something.
Send it over so I can tell you stink. Yeah, you're garbage. No, I'm just kidding.
No, literally, I am worried about, like, what if I, like, go with this thing and then, like, 4 years from now I'm on a collective show and then Joe's like, this guy.
What a pile of garbage is Josh. Well, just be good then. Just be great. That's just don't suck, and then I think you'll be good. No, that's all. Yeah, that's awesome though. That's really cool. Yeah, I always kind of thought about potentially doing it, and then I was always like, no, I'm not going to. But I have a few buddies that definitely did. And yeah, it looked like it hurt a lot. So I had a buddy that went into it, and he's like, don't, it hurts so much. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm just gonna watch and sit on my fat ass and tell people that they stink. It's much easier.
Well, earlier you were talking about Hiromu and him returning and him not missing a beat, right? So, like, one day I took out a crash pad. We've got a quality crash pads, literally the exact same ones that AEW uses for, like, their pre-match workouts and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've got a low boy ring. I mean, it's not very high off the ground at all. And I stood on the apron and I took a back bump to the ground on the crash pad. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
It was the worst bump I ever took. And I was like, and it was totally safe, but I couldn't believe it. And I was like, oh no. So anytime I see someone hitting the floor now, I'm like, oh my God. Like, but Hiromu,
right.
Hiromu with a surgically repaired neck does that senton off the top rope to the outside. Like, what is he thinking?
They're idiots. They're morons. Yeah, every wrestler is a complete idiot, and you are now a complete idiot as well by doing it. I'm glad you guys are idiots because it is very enjoyable and I enjoy it. So definitely keep it up. So
let's talk about these young boys.
So coming in third place with 432 points, Gabriel Kidd. Coming in second place with 491 points, Yota Tsuji. And then our winner coming in first place, 633 points, Yuya Uemura.
What can we say? Uemura, just the ultimate throwback. He looks like a young Fujinami or like a Go Ryuma, something like that. He's just so technically sound, incredible facials, great timing, great awareness. His selling's just awesome. His chain wrestling's off the hook. He was great in the Super Juniors this past, month. And prior to that, he was awesome in the New Japan Cup all year. He has just fucking ruled. I know I'm partial to Tsuji, but like Uemura is like the most well-rounded performer out of these young lions, and I think he's very special, and I think he's going to be a big star. And I'm not usually one who's willing to commit to that for any young lion. I might say I like them or I see they have potential, but I see star when I see Yuya Uemura.
I'm exactly the same way. From the moment he came in, I talked about it earlier in the show. He was like a guy that, I was like, oh, this is my dude and this is guy. But more than anything, like you could see it from the moment they walk out. You can see when these guys have that look, have that confidence, have the body, have the skill, all that sort of stuff. And he has put it all together. I mean, he's got an incredible look. He looks kind of like a throwback New Japan guy too. Like he belongs, with Koji Kanemoto and those guys like the early 90s, Jiro Otani. Like he's got that kind of look about him. His body's starting to fill out. You can see the muscle mass coming together, and there's just a confidence that he exudes when he's in the ring, and it's just he feels it. And yet again, I hate I'll do it at the end of the show where I plug the book or whatnot, but like doing his profile and reading a little bit more about his year, it's clear that New Japan, it's not just us. We all see it. We all kind of know that he is kind of a step above the other guys. But if you look at his actual booking and the matches that he gets, it's clear that they think of him as that way too. And that's nothing against Tsuji. That's nothing against Kid. That's nothing against those other guys. But those guys, they definitely book Yuya Uemura like they know that this is going to be one of those guys. And when you go back and look at the history of like how Jay White was booked, and the history of how Yo and Show were booked, and the history of how these other young lions that really excelled and became stars later, they were booked the same way too. So it's in a few years you can put a pin in this, but Yuya Uemura is going to be a star in this company, unless barring some injury or unforeseen circumstances. I think he's going to make it, and he's going to be a pretty a great part of the roster too, because I think he's really, really, really good.
Yeah, and of course, all three guys here were the three main young lions that were in Japan all this year, and they were the three that, in that C block that we had in the G1, they were just, trading wins and just having awesome matches in those openers of the show. So honestly, I could see I can see reasons why people voted any one of those three guys first place, but definitely, yeah, Uemura is the man, and yeah, he looks like $1 million, and you can just, like you mentioned, Rich, you can tell like they have plans for him. It's going to be something special, and whenever he comes back from excursion, I think it's going to be somebody they kind of put a lot of stock behind. Yota Tsuji, another guy I feel like has improved. I feel like he's put on a ton of mass this year as well, and just has been the bruiser out of these young line guys and incorporating a lot of power moves and firing up. And I thought he had a great year and improved as well. And then Clark Connor's a guy that almost got in that top three. I think the thing that hurt Clark was the fact that he was stuck in America and it was mainly confined to Strong. I feel like if Clark was in Japan, I think he might have gotten some more votes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well, it looks like we've got another 6 categories, maybe like 30 minutes. So let's try to string through these as quickly as possible. That way we don't hold Rich too long.
No problem. Yeah, no, I'll go quick. It's mostly my fault. I mean, my God,
it's us. We like to banter, and but we'll get through these ones.
No worries. Yeah, no problem.
All right, so next up we have the Strong Style Fight of the Year. And this is
my favorite category.
It's a cool category, yeah.
Very close here. These top three, man, it was neck and neck watching the votes come in and seeing which match was overtaking each other. So coming in third place, 260 points, we have Jon Moxley versus Minoru Suzuki from New Beginning in Osaka. Coming in second place, 268 points, Minoru Suzuki versus Kota Ibushi from the G1 Climax. And then our winner coming in first place with 287 points, the 2020 Strong Style Fight of the Year, Kota Ibushi versus Taiji from the G1 Climax.
Well, I'll start us off here. As I mentioned earlier, this was the year of Strong Style. So every year we have a lot of entries that are very worthy, but this year more so than any other, I think there was just so many valid entries because there were so many ass-kicking matches. And it's funny for me, I would have gone with Tomohiro Ishii versus Kota Ibushi from the G1, and it got trounced by this other stuff, because that's how deep the quality level was here. Moxley versus Suzuki was interesting in that I actually had it trend. I thought it was a great match, but I had it trending, match rating wise, lower than a lot of this stuff. But so many people, I think that match resonated with so many people, especially with just the run that Jon Moxley had this year. And I think the novelty of seeing him and Suzuki against one another, that match did very, very well. But the main match that scored the highest here, Ibushi Taiji, I think the main reason that this one won was just the fact that it stood out from the rest of the bunch, because it's the kicking match. It's the match where they did nothing but kick each other. And when you talk about a quote unquote fight of the year, a match that has realism to the point where you're like, that was super violent. It's hard to deny the validity of a match where guys just kick each other over and over and over again to see who's the real man. I love it.
Yeah, that's the match that I voted first place for. Yeah, just literally, what was that, 20 to 25 minutes of Ibushi and Taichi just literally kicking each other, maybe one or two other moves. Just the pure violence of it. It was like a kickboxing match. These guys just kick after kick after kick, and it was just like you mentioned, stood out. It was very different. It's kind of a very violent matchup. So I see why a lot of people agreed with me and voted that first place.
Yeah, it's a lot of really good. We talked about it a little bit earlier when we talked about, the strong style guys this year. And it was a year that those sort of match types really excelled because, they were able to, it's a simple story that you can tell in front of a full crowd or a no crowd. So there's a lot of really good choices here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of your top three that you guys put. I would also put Moxley and Suzuki in the running there too. I thought that was a really, really good match as well that really fit this, the criteria. Like you said, I finished third, but I might vote it number one, but
nice.
I can't argue with Taichi and Ibushi too. That was just like, when you talk about like bravado and what strong style kind of encapsulates, like two men just deciding, fuck it, let's just kick each other for 20 minutes like that. It pretty much is like the dumb, just stupid strong style,
dumb job.
It does work pretty well with it. Yeah, it just works for that too. So there's a lot of really cool choices here and a really good year for despite everything that maybe wasn't great in New Japan this year. The return of strong style in a lot of the ways, I think, was definitely one thing that happened.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made for literally any of the matches here on this list.
I 100% agree with that. Let's talk about a category that's a little shorter shorter in the tooth than normal, but still strong when it comes to quality, the junior match of the year.
Yeah, and so for people who might not know, our calendar year was November of 2019 to November of 2020, kind of the beginning of the World Tag League. So a lot of the best junior stuff is going to count on for next year's voting, which is why this year's list is a little bit shorter than usual. So coming in third place, 307 points, we had Hiromu Takahashi versus Taiji Ishimori from Saber Struggle in Jingu. Coming in second place, 515 points, Hiromu Takahashi versus Ryu Lee from New Beginning in Osaka. And then coming in first place, 714 points, and the 2020 Junior Match of the Year, Will Osprey versus Hiromu Takahashi from Wrestle Kingdom 14, Night 1.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Yeah, that's your number one. I mean, I think it's unquestionably the number one. I think, Hiromu and Lee, really, really good match as well. And Hiromu and Ishimori, great matches as well. And your guys voting, to clarify, your voting criteria ended when? Like, what was the last date that you guys?
The beginning of Tag League is always the start of the new year for us.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because that's one thing that I'm sure a lot of people would say is like, well, where's Hiromu and Desperado? And I'm sure that will be. That's definitely the leader right now for your next year's award. But yeah, that was the first one that I was like, oh my god, nobody voted for that one, and then realizing, oh yeah, that's probably not where you guys are doing the voting. So no. I think these three definitely work, and I think Will and Hiromu would be my unquestioned number one in this category.
Shout out to the 10 people who voted Roppongi 3K versus Mega Coaches from New Japan Road.
Or the Fantastica Mania vote as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, the 6 people that liked, that remembered Cavernario and Carisco, like, that match rocked. And normally we don't get any Fantastica Mania matches on the ballot, but, like, we literally had no junior matches. And we're like, Cavernario Caristico, that works. That's a junior match. We'll throw it on there.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing with the voting here is, like, you can look at how the point totals went, and, like, the majority of people voted Osprey Hiromu number one. the majority of number 2 votes went to Ryuli and Hiromu, and then the most third place votes went to Hiromu and Ishimori for Jingu, which again, that kind of makes sense why Hiromu won Junior Wrestler of the Year, because he was involved in all 3 of these top matches. And yeah, undoubtedly Osprey and Hiromu, that was a changing of the guard match. It was on the biggest stage. It was the best match of the juniors this year. And I think it was kind of unquestionable that I was going to win here, except for, the 6 people that liked Fantasticmania or the 10 that liked the Mega Coaches match.
Well, let's move on here to Tag Team Match of the Year. This is a new category for this year. First time we're doing that. We just felt like we had
this was like a little bit of a passion project for me, because I was like, you know what? Let's highlight some of these tag matches that really aren't going to get any sort of like acclaim or anything.
Right.
And once I started going through it, I was like, you know what? They had a lot of I know that this company doesn't put a ton of emphasis on the actual tag division, but when it comes to how many tag team matches occur throughout the calendar year, it's a ton.
Yeah, they have great tag wrestlers and great tag teams, so they just don't ever do anything with them. It's really annoying and disappointing.
And so we kind of went through and, we found what we felt were the 10 best tag team matches of the year, which I almost kind of hope people will use this as like a guide. Maybe they won't. Maybe I'm just spinning my wheels for no reason, but at least we have it for ourselves later on as a reference. But, these were the 10 matches that we felt, exemplified tag team wrestling in New Japan.
Yeah, so coming in third place with 200 points, we had Goto, Ishii, and Yoshihashi versus Okada, Yano, and Sho from the Summer Struggle Tour. Coming in second place with 245 points, we had Goto, Ishii, Yoshihashi versus Dangerous Tekkers and Doki from Road to Power Struggle. And then our winners and tag team match of the year with 549 points, Golden Ace versus Dangerous Tekkers from Dominion.
There is a part of me that wonders, had we put the other Golden Ace Dangerous Tekkers match from, what was it? Oh, yeah, Jingu Stadium's Summer Struggle show, if that would have cannibalized the votes here, which I think it might have. But in all fairness, the way we tabulate this stuff, it just didn't deserve to be on the ballot with the other, 9 matches that we had here. I thought it was interesting to see how many people remembered the 2 Yoshihashi, 6-man tags here that got a lot of love. For me personally, I think the match that I thought was the best tag team match all year was that New Year's Dash match with Evil Shingo against Ishii and Goto. But I think just because it happened so long ago, it sort of got forgotten.
Yeah, it's always tough with matches that happen that early in the year, other than like Wrestle Kingdom, obviously, which will stay with people for a long time. But yeah, that is a great match that honestly I probably forgot to until I'm reading it, through your guys' list and be like, yeah, man, that match fucking rocked. As far as the results, I don't have any real like strong thought of what I would say my definitely like this is clearly my tag team match of the year. I do love that the Yoshihashi matches did get some love, the 6-mans, because they definitely deserve it and belong there. Especially, I would say the one that came in number 2 is probably my favorite match, the Goto Ishihashi versus Tekkers and Dookie match from the Road to Power Struggle. But the Golden Ace Dangerous Tekkers match, the one that did get the vote, I'm fine with that one as well. I think there's a lot of really good choices. Like you guys said, New Japan does have great tag matches and does have great tag teams and does have great tag wrestlers, but it does stink that there's not like a definitive, like this is the, like they have all the talent to have like this being unquestioned. This is the best tag team match of the entire year. They just always seem to choose not to do so. So it's kind of weird. Yeah.
And also I think that helped out Golden Ace and Dangerous Tekkers. It was on Dominion, one of the bigger shows of the year. You had the mega team of Ibushi and Tanahashi coming together, and people wanted them to retain and kind of have this long run. And also, we saw it won the feud of the year, so people were really invested in this feud. And so it just had all the things going for it, and I could see why people voted that over some of the 6-man stuff or some of the other tag team matches that we had listed here.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about another passion project of ours, the Excursion match of the year.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Josh on this, because Josh does a really great job of compiling all the Excursion matches that happen throughout the year and watching them and, No,
literally. Like, you guys don't understand. I'm literally going on. I go on Cage Match. I find any match that occurred outside of New Japan for anyone that we consider. Well, this year, the criteria we used is they had to have more than 5 matches in the company. So that's why, like, there's no Jericho matches, but, like, Mox is still there. Plus, he had the title all year.
Right.
And then we watched it. Then we watched the matches.
Yeah.
I probably watched like 150 or something like matches. We watch them all year. And then this year we narrowed it down to what we thought were like 9 matches that we thought were above 4.25, basically. So,
and I'm excited to have Rich on for this because I know just listening to the flagship that you've watched. I think you've pretty much watched everything that we have here on this list.
I would say I'm going through the list right now. I think I had, and actually the Warrior Wrestling match I was at, the Chaos versus Rascals one I was at.
That match is awesome.
Yeah, it is really, really good. Yeah, that's Warrior Wrestling is not known. I mean, they're usually kind of a name promotion where they just book a bunch of names and the matches themselves usually don't deliver. But when you book those guys, like they were all just going to like go out there and bust their ass, and they did it. That match is really, really, really good. I'm thinking, I'm looking at all these. I think I did see all these kind of in a weird way. But yeah, there's a lot of really, really cool stuff. Did you didn't run these down, right?
No, let me do it.
Okay, I'll let you do that. I don't want to steal your thunder there.
So coming in third place, 284 points, we have Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston from AEW Full Gear. Coming in second place, 327 points, we had Ryu Lee versus Kenny Omega from AAA Triple Mania Regia. And then coming in first place with 465 points, Will Osprey versus Zack Saber Jr. from Rev Pro High Stakes.
That one probably belongs on top. That is a pretty high level. Great match. The Lee versus Omega one for Triple Mania. I like that one. All definitely deserves some inclusion. And then, like I said, Chaos and Rascals, I was there live and just a really kick-ass match with a lot of really, really cool shit. So I would say those ones and a lot of the RPW stuff, a lot of the stuff that they did in their, return, the Epic Encounters, not necessarily like great sort of like bell-to-bell in-ring matches, but I mean, they still were pretty fantastic, but like really cool story matches as well, as you see Will, slowly turning heel on this like tape show that was taped, months before he actually turned heel in Japan. It's just a really, really cool, like pro wrestling at its core is like this guy knowing he's going to turn heel in like 2 months. So, slowly but surely working like more of a dick as the matches go on. And then like, he has the match, with Fletcher, and he has a few matches later in Epic Encounters where he actually is working heel now, even though in real time he hadn't turned heel yet in New Japan. It's just like really awesome stuff that I love about pro wrestling. So it's shout out to all of those matches.
Yeah, I absolutely loved the Fletcher match from Epic Encounters 3, and just seeing, cause I hadn't really been paying attention to Red Pro that much, and then seeing Fletcher come back with all this size, I'm like,
I know, it's hard to believe it's the same human being. I'm still not entirely sure that it is the same human being, because like, that dude laid like 112 pounds last you saw him, and now he's like 215. It's like, what the hell?
Put on all this size, and had this incredible hard-hitting match with Osprey. One match that I feel like if more people probably would have watched, that would have won, was Will Osprey versus Dowie James from MTW Vendetta. That match was freaking incredible. Like, if you have not watched that match, you need to go out of your way to watch that. Like, Dowie James was absolutely incredible. He's a guy I feel like, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I think, American Indies would be trying to book this guy. Maybe PWG might be seeing him. But yeah, that match was just absolutely blow away.
Forget the American Indies and PWG. Triple H would have got him. No, but every year, again, part of the reason we do this is just because a lot of the stuff people miss, or that they're not as aware that it's out there. And so we kind of hope you guys will use this as a guide and be like, you know what, these matches are worth going to check out. So, that's part of it. But I agree with you, Jeremy. The Osprey versus Dowie James, I voted that number one. I thought that was a 5-star match, literally that good. The funny thing, the match, if you were to go through the ratings out there on like Cage Match and Grapple, people buried the shit out of this Osprey Fletcher match to the point that like I was like, we should watch it, but it's probably not going to get on the list. And then
it's so.
And then like, because they like, people were rating it like it was a 3-star match, and then Jeremy watched it and he's like 4.5, and I was, or 4.25, 4.5, something like that. And I was like, bro, are you? I thought maybe because he
like, did you watch the right match?
Well, I just know he really likes Osprey, so I was like, I think Jeremy has really good ratings and takes and stuff, but I also was like, maybe he's just incorrect on this one, and he was like, no, bro, trust me, go watch it. And then I watched it, and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah, there was no way. I think on Grapple, it was like 3.5 or lower, like 3.25. I was like, there's no way. Like, if you watch that match, like, there's no way that it should be anywhere in a 3-star territory. Minimum 4 stars. But yeah, that match was great.
Another match that's on here that didn't get a lot of love, but I feel like people need to see it, is Eagles versus Panzer from the Philippines. That match from PWR is really, really good. It's really cool because it reminds me a lot of like when Osprey went to Australia and kind of put Eagles on for the first time at PWA. And he was like the outside star, like traveling and like kind of giving the top, domestic guy a shot. That's kind of what this was. It was, Eagles being established, going over there to this like burgeoning independent scene and giving one of the top stars there that most people haven't heard of, but I think one day maybe they will, in Chris Panzer, and just having an awesome blow away main event that like really impressed me. And I wasn't expecting much from it. It just like was a little diamond in the rough. So last thing I'll say, Osprey versus Saber definitely deserves to win this. Just because it had a lot of notoriety, it had a lot of eyes and attention on it, and it was a fantastic match and really fit into the feud that they were having that started in New Japan. But I'm kind of glad this one as well, because the last 2 years we did this. The first year Omega and Pentagon won, and I didn't think it deserved to win. I just thought it was the match that most people saw. And then the year after that, it was Omega and Mox, and they barely won. And I just felt like it was the match that most people saw. But here, I think that people voted for this one because it actually was something that they all felt like, oh, wow, that like was blow away.
Yeah, I'm surprised that one of the AEW matches didn't get more votes, like the Moxley or Brody or Moxley at Kingston. I was expecting one of those to maybe do a little bit higher than they did. But yeah, I'm glad
that's what I'm getting at. I'm glad that I thought those matches ruled, but I'm glad that this match won because I clearly thought it was better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then moving on now to the angle of the year. Coming in third place, 327 points. We had Minoru Suzuki attacking Jon Moxley at Wrestle Kingdom 14. Coming in second place, 437 points. We had Kenta attacking Naito at Wrestle Kingdom 14. And then coming in first place in our winner for 2020 Angle of the Year, 572 points. Evil joining the Bullet Club.
I won't spend a lot of time talking about the angles this year because for the most part it was just a lot of people getting jumped, a lot of heat. But the one that I think resonated for everybody because it was so unexpected, it was something that when it occurred and you sort of looked at the little breadcrumbs they're giving us all throughout the New Japan Cup leading into it, it made a lot of sense. And it had the most ramifications down the line for the heavyweight title scene. For better or for worse, was Evil turning on Tetsuya Naito, joining the Bullet Club, and going, totally evil, and as his name implies, and that has to be the biggest moment in terms of stories or angles for the entire year in New Japan.
Yeah, anybody.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, anybody who listens to our show knows that we have not been big fans of Evil and the matches and the push. But when you just isolate the actual moment of Naito coming out after Evil beats Okada, and then turning the fist bump into Too Sweet, hitting him with everything is evil, like that one singular moment was pretty cool, and just like that moment of the year. And it's like, oh wow, like I never expected that Evil would be the guy that would turn and kind of do his own thing. And so that singular moment in itself was pretty awesome. Definitely like the angle that resonated throughout the year.
No, I think there's no question that deserves to be atop the list. I think that is the most important angle. And it was, if you just ignore everything that happened afterwards, or you just choose to like kind of think of it like in the very definition of what was the best angle of the year, it's that it's clearly Evil turning on Naito. But I will also say that it would have been a tough vote for me. Kenta coming out there and just spoiling the Wrestle Kingdom, celebration was like tremendous heat as well. It's just we didn't know that the rest of the year, like you said, would just be heat. But like they do not do that. They usually do not spoil moments like that, but they chose to do it in this moment, and it made it just a really, really like, oh my god, like it was shocking when it was done that Kenta came out there and did that. But so it was a good year, I think, for a lot of those. But like I think you nailed it there by saying that it ended up kind of feeling like a lot of the segments or the heat was kind of all the same. It was kind of every angle kind of ended up being the same, but definitely Evil and definitely Kenta coming out, I think, stand above the rest.
Well, one shout out I will give, I know I said I wouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. Suzuki attacking Mox. When we did the preview show, Rich Latta was on the show, and he kind of specified that he thought that this should be the angle of the year because he talked about the crowd reaction to the moment, how like it was so unexpected, and people were angry at the time because they're like, another year Suzuki isn't on the show, has nothing to do, yada yada, and then suddenly like Mox wins his match. What was it, over Juice, right?
Yeah,
he beats Juice, and then suddenly you hear like dun, 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 and everyone's like, oh my god, and then he came out and he takes off the tracksuit and he's in like full gear, and you're like, oh my god, and like people, we marked out for that. So I'm kind of glad that a lot of people remembered that, and that got a good dose of love as well.
Yeah, one of our listeners was actually like in the bathroom when Suzuki's music played, and like did like full sprint back to his seat while he heard Suzuki's music.
That's funny.
I want to just give a shout out to something that probably might have done better, but it's attached to Will Osprey, the great Okan, making his debut in New Japan and helping Osprey beat Okada and kind of the formation of the Empire. I thought that was a pretty cool angle there. I mean, there was no really signs or rumors of Okan coming back, and there was no signs of Osprey really turning heel for the most part. And so I thought that was a pretty...
I knew about it. My sources had told me about it, but I just didn't share them.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Those Matt Seidel sources, right?
Yeah, Matt. No, it's not. It's not Matt. Come on.
All right, so our last category here, the news story of the year. Coming in third place with 324 points, Harold May resigning and the introduction of the new president. Coming in second place with 425 points, New Japan shutting down due to COVID. And then coming in first place with 599 points, the 2020 news story of the year. Biggest story of the year. Naito being the first double champion.
I'm a little like, of all the ones, like the news story of the year is supposed to be the one thing that's the most rooted in reality and like actual prevalent news. And like, maybe we shouldn't have thrown Naito being on there, but we're like, that was pretty historic. It deserves a mention. Never in a million years did I think it would be New Japan shutting down due to global pandemic, New Japan losing their Access TV deal, New Japan losing their president. Like, these all sounded like real, like, pressing, like, news stories. And then, like, I don't know, man, Naito winning that double gold. That's really... it's historic. I don't know.
No, it's definitely, and one thing that I think a lot of people underrate is just how important that Access deal and losing that was.
Yeah.
And we talk about it on our show a lot. Like, there's a lot of people that are really in the bubble of New Japan and really just kind of talk to like other hardcore New Japan fans that don't realize how many people watch that show via Access TV, how many people found out about New Japan Pro Wrestling via Access TV. And I think that played a huge role in what I've seen, and I'm sure you guys have as well, is a lot less interest in the West in New Japan in this 2020, and there's probably a lot of reasons why that's happening, and obviously the no crowds, pandemic, and all that sort of stuff, evil, whatever you want to say. There's a lot of things that came in, but I really do think that despite being a pretty kind of low key thing that maybe people don't put on a real high pedestal as being a big important part, I think is something that absolutely is, because like, and I'm not saying it's solely because of Access. Obviously there are many things, but like they were going to do that MSG show this year. Like, I really don't think that would have gone well. Like, it would not have done nearly what it was going to do if like the Elite was there and B, if that Access deal was there. I really do think that's a way more important deal than people give credit to. And at the same breath, I think Harold May as well resigning is a pretty big deal as well, because that that did, to me at least, spoke to maybe a little less emphasis on America moving forward. We don't know. We'll see what 2021 brings in, but that could be a pretty big change in how they're going to approach expansion, global expansion, and domestic business, moving forward too. So I mean, those are big things. Those are, like you said, there's a pandemic, your CEO resigns, and like you lose your major TV deal in the United States, but it's like, yeah, Naito had some belts. That's it is pretty fun. But
one thing that's interesting, since you mentioned the Harold May and the US stuff, everything that they ended up actually doing when it came to the US was completely opposite of what he had initially said.
Right.
He was like, we're not going to do more tours. We're not going back over there. We're going to expand our television deals. We're going to find ways to expand our audience without the added cost of having to travel overseas. And then they lost the TV deal and increased the amount of like overseas touring.
You're right.
Then they pull the map out.
Yeah, and then they pulled the map out. It was like, what in the world? But yeah, I think for me, New Japan shutting down due to COVID, and then the way they handled the COVID, pandemic.
Legacy CRM platforms have made you compromise for far too long. With HubSpot's CRM platform, you don't have to choose between enterprise tools that are powerful or easy to use. It gives you both, so your marketing, sales, and service teams can align with ease, accelerate sales, and anticipate every customer need. Finally, there's a CRM platform that helps you run better so you can grow better, without complexity ever getting in the way. Learn more at HubSpot.com. You don't need to be employed to get employee-level vision coverage. If you're retiring soon and looking for a way to continue caring for your eyes, get a VSP individual vision plan at VSPdirect.com.
To me, like nothing else that happened this year in the news. I mean, it was unprecedented, but then the way it directly affected their business, the way it affected everything else, I thought that was just the most important thing, especially since like they're one of the few companies that you can, well, not few, but like out of all the companies out there, like universally people have praised New Japan and how they handled the entire situation. And yeah, it still got second place, but like it's still lost by almost 200 points, which is like, I don't know, man, that one's a little mind boggling.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. And I think one of the things, them, obviously not running shows for a while, completely shutting down more so than really any other company. Most other companies either came back as quickly as they could or came back because they had to. New Japan saying, no, we're not going to run until things are a little bit better. And then when realizing, well, fuck, things are not going to get much better, let's just come back. But then also doing it, I think, of the companies, I think they've done an incredible job of sort of adjusting. It's not all been great. I mean, obviously, there's some issues, but I think in terms of safety, in terms of telling fans, hey, come here, don't cheer, clap, make sure you're respectful or whatever, do that sort of stuff. Let's keep the shows to a minimum. I mean, they've completely transformed their booking. Like, they do not fill the undercard with a bunch of random tag matches, and they try to get as few people on the show as possible. They've kept the show shorter. They're now around like 2.5 hours as opposed to they were getting to like, 4.5 there for a while as well. And then you saw like, in the brief moments where like Minoru Suzuki, right? Like potentially had a fever. So they took him off. They've been reacting, and they're putting it feels like more so than a lot of other wrestling companies, putting health and safety and listening to doctors as opposed to just saying, well, fuck it, who cares? We need to, run wrestling shows. So, yeah.
Well, one last thing I'll throw out there. One thing I'm speculating on is we had more people vote this year than we've ever had vote before. But with the undeniable fact that New Japan has lost some of its traction here in the West, and then I'm assuming the truth of the matter is a lot of those New Japan fans that were enamored with New Japan, a lot of them were enamored with the Bullet Club and with the Elite and different, performers that have gone on to work for AEW. So I'm wondering how much that's also kind of affected our idea of how the awards would actually turn out. Like maybe there is this exodus of fans here in the West, and maybe what was left was maybe a more pro-elitist mindset sort of fan. I don't know if that, and I don't say it to disparage anybody at all, because this has definitely been eye-opening awards for me, definitely. But it does make me wonder if that's affected how these votes would have gone had, say, New Japan worked with AEW this year or something like that,
Right. No, I think you're absolutely on it. I think there's totally a different, dynamic of fan bases. And I think we can, at least I know from our website, we can definitely look at the numbers and see that a lot of those fans that were getting that alternative from New Japan Pro Wrestling have now decided their alternative is going to be AEW, whether it be because of the Bucks or Omega, or it's just easier because it's on American television. It's on, it's on Wednesdays in prime time, and I don't have to seek out like this other website. I don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. And like access wise, it's a lot easier, for lack of a better term, in both ways, both not, having access and all that sort of stuff with New Japan versus AEW. So I think it's clear that there are definitely contingency of fans that were New Japan fans that were watching New Japan for that alternative that now have decided that AEW is that alternative, and whether that holds forever or if it's just because a lot of people are saying, well, is it because of Evil, because of this? And I don't think there's any one reason for it. I think it maybe would have happened no matter what this year. given the inclusion of AEW. But I'm very curious to see how 2021 goes. If those fans do come back, if those Western fans in New Japan do come back, or if, like you said, Josh, it becomes a little bit more of just sort of hardcore Puro fans that are your New Japan fans, and your kind of casual American fans have found an alternative in AEW.
And I think what I'm kind of getting at is, like, it felt like in the West, the two biggest New Japan names were Naito and Omega, and Omega's gone.
Sure.
And maybe that's why we've seen like this
the
increase
rise.
in, like the rise of like Naito. But it was definitely his year, and I mean that's reflected here.
Yeah, and two things I just want to follow up real quickly on Richard, your point on the Access TV deal. The thing that I hear from a lot of hardcore New Japan fans, it's like, oh, they're just showing like matches I already saw. And like,
yes,
I think what people didn't realize, like the value of showing back those big matches, because there are, believe it or not, a lot of wrestling fans don't watch New Japan, or maybe don't watch all the matches from the tours. They might miss like the IC title match or the Never title match. And Access was showing like all those big title matches and showing you those story of like Okada and Tanahashi. And so, yeah, I definitely think the Access TV deal is very undervalued. And, like, the hardcore New Japan fans are like, well, I have New Japan World. Like, I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m. and watch it regardless. Like, why do I need them to replay, Okada, Tanahashi?
It's not for you dummy. It's, it's for the people that, and like, think of if you'd never watched New Japan ever, that Access show was like, here's incredible match after incredible. Every single week was like a fucking incredible, like, you didn't have to deal with undercards. You didn't have to deal with intermissions. You have to deal with a match that's in, it was just like, hey, here's every great match that we've had over the last, 5 years. Here you go. Done with, familiar voices that you may have known. I mean, it was a tremendous show. Like, it was like, I never watched it because I already, like you said, I already watched all that stuff, but it wasn't for a Rich Kraetsch or a Joe Lanz or a Jeremy or a Joshua. It wasn't for us. It was for those fans that are casual. And those fans are the ones that really matter in terms of the box office. Those are the fans that were buying tickets to MSG. Those are the fans that make you become the number 2 company. Really, I think they legit were there. The number 2 company in America. Those fans make you that. Not no offense to us, but like, the hardcores of the hardcores, they're not the
right.
What really drives the business is those casual fans that you never hear from, that never vote for awards. Those people that are kind of in the underground that are watching and are doing stuff. I mean, those are the fans that really drive business more so than I think a lot of people give credit for.
Well, the one thing that they have an advantage with when it comes to that type of show, which for my money, they should never show what they're doing with New Japan Strong on television if they were to ever get a TV deal, because it would be death. It would suck to be doing the same product that 6 other companies are doing, but do it shittier. The advantage they have is that we've seen when AEW or WWE try to showcase, matches that happened in the past, the numbers drop and die. But New Japan has the unique advantage where they're able to do that, and they will draw bigger numbers off of it because most people don't have access to it and they've never seen it. And so if they were to actually just do the same show that they were doing on Access before, for all the people that don't have New Japan World and don't know how to watch the show, they would actually do really, really big numbers when most other companies don't have the luxury to be able to do that. They have to go out and produce new television every single week. And like New Japan literally doesn't have to. They could just show what they've been doing and they would make more money for a TV station. I just don't know where that right home is for them.
Yeah,
right.
I think you're on it.
And one of the things with the COVID, I know it got second place, but probably why I didn't get first. I know just in general, a lot of people are just tired of talking about COVID and tired of the pandemic. And we're probably looking for like a positive kind of silver lining of this year to vote for. And that's why I think probably, Naito being the first double champion is definitely one of the positive things on this list. And I can see why, people who are just tired of COVID and the pandemic and hearing about everything wanted to go with that to kind of not have to think about COVID.
Well, if they wanted a silver line, they should put down KOPW. I also have a feeling that the one person that voted for it as number 1 might be my girlfriend. I'm not sure. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the 2020 New Japan Year-End Awards for Keeping It Strong Style. Rich, thank you so much for being here to
this is fun. With us. This is great.
And we hit our time. We are professionals.
You are. Nice job on doing that. Yeah, did not go too long here, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Want to get you in and out. We know you got to rush and watch TLC, right?
Oh my God, yeah, geez, I've missed so much already. I've missed, yeah, the ladder matches that happened. I'm not.
Another ladder
anything
match?
else. Yeah, I'm gonna do. Yeah, there two more to finish out the year that had I think 27 or something ladder match, some ridiculous total. But no, I don't think I'll be watching tables, ladders, and chairs. But we'll see.
Well, Rich, go ahead and tell our listeners where they can find you online and what projects you have coming up with Voices of Wrestling.
Yeah, so voicesofwrestling.com, of course. I'm the co-host of the Voice of Wrestling flagship podcast. We record every Wednesday or Thursday, mostly Thursdays. Sometimes we have to do Wednesdays. That appears on the Voice of Wrestling podcast network, which has plenty of other stuff as well. Wrestling podcasts about every topic you can possibly want. The music of wrestling, Puro, American wrestling, the indies, AEW. I mean, we got it all there on the Voice of Wrestling podcast network. But I'm co-host of the Voice of Wrestling flagship. We also do a lot of content on Patreon as well, patreon.com/Voices of Wrestling. We have a $1, $2, and $5 tiers. So there's a good tier, or sorry, $1, $5, and $10 tier. Sorry about that. Where we have some great content on each. The $10 tier, all our live stuff. We do like live instant reactions after big shows. Not TLC. We will not be doing instant reaction to TLC. Obviously, given that I'm doing this with you guys instead of watching fucking TLC. But with the major shows that people care about, like AEW shows, big New Japan shows, Wrestle Kingdoms, all that sort of stuff, we're going to make those pretty important on the instant reaction. And we do live flagships as well. So if you want to listen to the flagship live every week, you can do that on the $10 tier. On the $5 tier, we have a lot of retro content as well. We also have Joe's Thursday Tea reviews. Every Thursday, he reviews AEW, breaks down the ratings. I do retro kind of series based off the time. Like I just got done doing a Best of the Super Junior series, or I'm in the midst of doing a Best of the Super Junior series right now. And I'll move on to maybe Royal Rumble and some other stuff here as January goes on. But the most important thing and the most relevant thing to, I think, your listeners, the Voices of Wrestling New Japan Year in Review ebook. Every year for the last, I think it's 7 years now, which seems ungodly ridiculous. We've been doing these for 7 years now. We do a Year in Review ebook that is ungodly amount of pages, ungodly amount of words. It has wrestler profiles about every single wrestler that stepped foot in a New Japan pro wrestling ring. It's got detailed statistics, who I believe the guy you're going to talk to pretty soon here, Chris Samsa, I think in the next week or so. You guys are having him. So we have all of his stats in there as well. Extensive breakdowns, extensive reviews, really, really cool essays as well, including, I'm just going to say, I'll let you plug yourself, but I believe there is somebody that is on the line right here who has an essay that appears in this ebook this year, but there's all that great stuff in there. Really, really cool stuff. I said reviews, essays. We talk about Fantastic Mania. We talk about everything that went on in New Japan Pro Wrestling throughout the year. And a nice little thing that I can finally announce. Thankfully, it was kind of hard getting it all together. We were kind of hoping that it was going to happen, but it did eventually happen. We have the introduction, the foreword of the book, written by Jon Moxley.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was tough. Getting to Jon Moxley is about as hard as you would assume getting to Jon Moxley was, but we were eventually able to get in there. And I'm really excited. And the profile is exactly what, like, if you for a second doubt that the Jon Moxley that you see in New Japan or the Jon Moxley you see in AEW, or not the Jon Moxley you saw the Dean Ambrose you saw in, like, what he is on TV as I think exactly what he is in real life, because every email correspondence I had, every discussion I had was exactly what you would hope.
I can't even picture Mox sending an email.
It was not. I mean, there was never a subject. He replied to like random things. At one point, he was like, hey, when do you want me to send you this? And I was like, anytime in the next few weeks. He's like, all right, cool, remind me. So in the next few weeks, I reminded him, and he said, shit, I forgot. Give me a few days. And then like 10 minutes later, he goes, here you go, here it is. And I was like, okay, there you go. So, it's great. I mean, the first line is, I had never even heard of Voices of Wrestling before these guys asked me. So that's awesome. It is unbelievable. Yeah. So I think a lot of people are excited to read that. So really, really good stuff. As I said, essays, the introduction by Jon Moxley, stats, reviews, wrestler profiles, tag team profiles, championship histories, title histories. There's a bunch of different stuff. All the information of that will be up at voicesofwrestling.com. The plan is the last week of December or the first few days of January. You never know. We're ahead of the game right now, but things can go awry really quickly. So we'll see where things go. Especially, we're so dumb by trying to do this like this month of all time, like during Christmas. I'm trying to squeeze this in, but why not? Wrestle Kingdom's coming up, so that's why we try to do it during there. But we have 2 price tiers as well for that. We have a name your own price that will be available at voiceswrestling.com. So if you want to download it for free, you can absolutely download it for free. But we will say that any amount of money that you give is definitely appreciated, because the money made from the book is split among the contributors. So we have a lot of people that will download it for free and then go back and say, oh shit, this is really good. I want to give you guys $5, $10. I would recommend $10,000, but or $1,000, whatever, whatever value you want to put on 100,000, that's fine too. We'll definitely take it. But all the money made will be contributed among the split between the contributors for the book. Or we also have it available on the Amazon Kindle store as well. And that will be for a set price, like $5.99. Then it'll go right to your Kindle and be good there. So yeah, you can download it for free if you want. You can do name your own price, or you can get it for a set price on the Amazon Kindle store. But yeah, really excited for this book this year. It is what I will say. What's fun about this book, the past few years have really been kind of like a love letter to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and rightfully so. I mean, it's been an incredible company for a long time. This year, though, it's a lot of fun. Like I was initially saying, geez, I'm not going to like doing this one because I don't love, I haven't loved everything that New Japan's done this year. But I think that's actually made it a very interesting book. Like we have essays that, one essay will talk about how great Evil's been, and the next essay will be like, Evil fucking sucks. I hate Evil. So it's really cool. Like
I should write one.
Yeah, there's still time. If you can get it in the next week, you are allowed, sir. You got 5 days to get it in. But no, it is awesome to watch like the different. Every essay that comes in is like contradicting the prior essay, and that's really what's cool about this book. Is it doesn't feel like everyone's in lockstep. It feels like every page you turn, there's like this person's putting this guy over, and this person's like, hey, I don't like this guy. And so it's made a really cool book this year and a really interesting and different book this year. So you
guys are playing a dangerous game. You're going to start a lot of feuds.
Oh, that's fine. You know what? We've done it before. We'll do it again. We'll survive.
Yeah, I'm really looking.
Have you guys heard of the Orange Crush art journal?
Yes. Yeah.
So they just literally, as you were telling me that, I just figured I'd bring it up. They revealed their and it's a black and white photo of Jon Moxley smoking a cigarette. You guys can see it right here.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's like I guess it's kind of cool that this guy's willing to like do little things like this to kind of just like help the fan base, which I'm sure he couldn't do, in his days. So yeah, that's really cool. But we will definitely be plugging your guys' project.
Great.
Yeah. Very excited about the year-end ebook. And yeah, like Rich mentioned, I will be contributing again. I contributed last year. Looking forward to contributing again. I got to finish up my essay here in the next couple of days and get that over to you, Rich. But yeah, the ebook is great. So if you guys have never checked out one of their ebooks before, definitely go out and check out. You can check out the previous years. Are all available for download as well.
Yep. Buy those years. They're awesome too.
Yeah. And I am a $10 Patreoner for the Voices of Wrestling, and I can tell you all the content they're doing behind the paywall is absolutely great. So if you're never done a Patreon or looking for extra content, Rich and Joe are pumping out the content and do some great stuff there behind their paywall. So definitely go and check that out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Rich. We appreciate you being here, man.
Well, it was great having Rich Kreitch on to break down the awards and announce this year's awards. Before we move on to talk about Road to Tokyo Dome, we did have a question here from Rich Latta asking, what was the most surprising thing about this year's awards?
Yes, and I'd like to say this is definitely happening minutes after our live interview with Rich Kraetsch. This is definitely not 2 days later.
I mean, clearly, they're not going to be able to tell at all.
So what was Rich Latta's question?
What was the most surprising thing about this year's awards?
That is a great question. I think for me, to be honest, I think it was Wrestler of the Year. And it's not that, as we kind of discussed on the just a few moments ago with Rich, there's definitely an argument to be made for Naito to have won. And I definitely thought he was going to get votes. And I definitely thought, that there would be a contingency of people that were voting for him. But I didn't expect the overwhelming support. And I think we also did a really great job, not to, pat ourselves on the backs the whole time that I'm like giving my answer. But when we did the preview episode with Rich Latta, we talked about his drawing ability. We talked about his status as being the top guy in the company, him dominating the world title scene, having a strong G1. Those are all great things. And but the biggest detriment to me, and it's just the main thing, and I hate to be that guy, but like, he just didn't measure up in ring even close to a good majority of the top candidates, namely Ishii, Shingo, Suzuki, and Ibushi. And even if you can point to his 2 best matches of the year, which were definitely the January 4th Okada match and then the first night of B Block against Tanahashi, the rest of the year really pales in comparison to like the 17 or 18 matches Shingo or Ishii had, on on the ratings boards. But everyone's different, That's just it is kind of like what Rich was saying, Rich Kraetsch, sometimes the guy with the best story isn't necessarily the best player. I just think it is a big discrepancy in terms of match quality between him and those 4 names I named, and you could even probably throw Hiromu in there. And generally speaking, when I think of the wrestler of the year, I put a lot of, especially in New Japan because it's such a in-ring centric product, I put a lot of emphasis on the actual in-ring presentation. But we kind of knew this going in. It's what we talked about.
Right. Especially when you look back at the history of our awards. Last year, Will Osprey won it. 2018, Kenny Omega won it. 2017 was Kazuchika Okada. Like, all of those are definitely, the best in-ring guys that year.
They were like the top performers in the year while also having done great business, having been the focal point in, the stories and so those were like slam dunk guys. And like we talked about, there wasn't a slam dunk guy. Was there anything that was very surprising for you? Was it the same thing as me or is it something else?
So that was kind of surprising wrestler of the year, but I understand why it went that way. The thing that really surprised me, like we talked about with Rich Kraetsch, was news story of the year. You had a lot of, and I know we could probably be partially blamed that for how we set it up. You had a mix of kayfabe things and real life things,
but they're all valid news stories,
right? And the fact that Naito being the double champion was bigger than, New Japan having to shut down for months, not knowing when it was going to come back, and just how they handled the pandemic.
I agree. I think the biggest thing is I think we were both also a little surprised at Fighting Spirit. But with Fighting Spirit, there is an element of kayfabe.
Right. That's why, I was more surprised about the news story than I was Fighting Spirit.
And it's not even that's like the most prestigious award or anything.
Right.
If we had tiers of awards, I'd call it a B award. But it was surprising that it was not like, the COVID shutdown or some of the other things we mentioned.
Right.
So yeah, those were kind of like big surprises. One other big surprise to me, and I guess the way it shook out, it makes sense, but I was disappointed. Suzuki getting no real awards this year for the run that he went on. And at one point I was like, he was in the best feuds all year. He has a collection of matches that stack right up against, Shingo and Ishii and Kota Ibushi, especially in the strong style division. I thought he was going to be strong style fighter of the year.
It was close.
He was really close. I also thought he might win Fighting Spirit Award just based off the work he did and his popularity. And nope. And he didn't even win, strong style fight of the year, which I didn't think he should, but I'm just surprised. He was a candidate in so many different things and he didn't get anything.
Feud of the year with Shingo.
I thought he should have. I thought that was a lock, at least. I thought that they were going to win Feud of the Year. And, if you look at the feuds he had, him and Mox, him and Shingo, him and Nagata, he was in, 3 of the most prominent feuds of the whole year. I was just really surprised by that one also.
Yeah, so, some interesting results there, but overall, happy with you guys coming out and voting.
Were you surprised Ishii came in 3rd for Strong Style Wrestler of the Year? Carl Gotch?
It's a surprise, but also not a surprise at the same time, just because Shingo has had an incredible year, and Shingo was not in the junior division this year, and he was having these hot battles with Goto and Suzuki and Ishii, and I just think Shingo's popularity just really, it shows here.
I will say this, I like Shingo a lot. I know a lot of people do. Give me Ishii all day. I know he's older. I know he's more ring-worn. I'm a Ishii guy over a Shingo guy. You don't have to be one or the other. I'm a little of both, but I'm a little bit more Ishii than I am Shingo.
Yeah, I mean, I like both of them. I don't know if I could just pick one of them.
Well, I said I like both.
I know, but you picked one over the other.
Oh, I could pick. That's because I'm a decisive man.
You got a favorite child.
Absolutely. Don't let your parents lie to you. They all have a favorite child.
Oh, trust me, I know. My brother is the favorite.
I'm the favorite.
Must be a Josh thing because my brother's name is Josh also.
All right. So what's next?
So now we're going to move on to talk about Road to Tokyo Dome. And we had a question here from Reddit user PSan91 saying, is it just me or did the most recent Road to shows feel like glorified house shows? We usually get at least one banger tag match on these shows, but this year it has felt very by the numbers New Japan multi-man matches so far. Well, as long as we get the snow on the last day of the tour, then all is good with the world.
I concur about the snow. But I don't know if we're gonna get it. I mean, we usually get it,
right? And I'm sure by the time most of you guys are hearing that the third Road to show, the final Road to show, will have aired. So you're listening to this first or you saw that first. But regardless, yeah. So obviously we're recording this ahead of time, so we don't know if the snow is going to fall or not. But I would think so.
Do you feel like? I mean, so Ibushi and the main event on the last night, Naito and Bushi versus Ibushi and Sho. I'm like, is it going to be like LIJ standing under the snow as it falls? Is it going to be Ibushi and Sho? That kind of sounds weird. I don't know.
Yeah, either combo, it does seem kind of weird. I mean, they might. Because, there's been a lot of pin eaters where I thought we're going to eat pins, and we'll talk about it as we run through the results. So it's not a lock that Bushi is getting pinned here. Like, Naito could easily pin Sho. And so they could end the tour with the double champion doing the snow celebration. But then they could also end it with Ibushi pinning Bushi and ending with the snow. I guess it's just how they want to leave us. Because either way, they're both baby faces. It's going to be a feel-good moment. But I'm wondering if the winner is going to give away, like, who's not winning at the Dome.
Well, by the time this episode drops, everyone will probably already know because this is happening in just a few hours, basically.
Right.
So, yeah, that's going to be interesting. I do agree, though. I think that these Road 2 shows are kind of glorified house shows. I mean, they're Road 2 shows, and there's Road 2 shows and then there's Road 2 shows. There's your standard ones that you see along like the Road to New Beginning, Road to Dantaku, Road to Power Struggle. And, you don't get much on those tours except every once in a while. But then when you have like Road to Tokyo Dome, generally speaking, in years past, we've had really good preview matches with
Golden Lovers versus Osprey and Tanahashi.
Yeah, that's an example of one. I mean, there's a bunch that I could probably think of, but like there's been a lot of really intriguing sort of matchups that are not by the numbers. They're sort of your last push to the Dome. And so you usually get a lot of really cool story elements, but these shows have felt like just your standard middle of May Road 2 shows, and it doesn't feel like we're getting ready for a big Tokyo Dome show when I'm watching these, and I'm not getting the same kind of story elements, twists. They're just it's just regular build.
Right, yeah, it's very by the numbers Road 2 style. There's not these, big kind of tag matches that we would normally get on these Road to Tokyo Dome shows.
There have been some story elements, and I guess Jeremy, you could take us through everything here, but yeah, I think part of the problem here is, the last tour that we were on was Tag League and Super Juniors, and very little of that had much to do with what's going on in the Tokyo Dome. And we're talking about what, like 4 weeks, 5-6 weeks, something like that, and then you get three, less half of a week, basically 3 shows back to back to back to prepare for the Dome. That doesn't seem like the best way to like really, if this is your quote unquote go home, it's a very weak go home for the biggest show of the year.
Yeah, so let's take a look at some of the results that happened on Monday's show and today's show, and then we'll run the card down again for tomorrow's show. So on Monday, December 21st, it opened up. We had Satoshi Kojima teaming up with a returning Tiger Mask and a returning Togi Makabe to defeat Gabriel Kidd, Yota Tsuji, and Yuya Uemura. So obviously kind of the big story there was mainly, even though Makabe was back, it was mainly Tiger Mask being back. After they won the match, he was kind of gave like a...
I think he had diverticulitis.
Yeah, he did. And so he bowed to the crowd afterwards, and it was kind of like a special moment. And also, I didn't have English commentary, but I assume that the Japanese announcers were kind of hyping up Tiger Mask and him being back. So that was the main story there. Then moving on to the second match, we had Juice Robinson and Toa Henare defeating the Bullet Club team of Kenta and Yujiro Takahashi. The main story here, Juice wanting revenge on Kenta for costing them the World Tag League Finals, and then B, wanting the briefcase and a shot at the U.S. title. So Juice pinned Yujiro here to set up the win here, and him challenging Kenta for the briefcase, which we would see play out throughout this tour.
The funny thing with that is, people have made jokes about like Naito not being able to come off that white belt. What about Juice in this red belt, man? Like, he's stuck with that shit forever. Also, it looks like Dave Finlay may or may not be in the country. I mean, he's not on any of these tours. And, I mean, that kind of sucks after, like, all the good work he did during World Tag League and all the work he's done on Strong and everything like that. And then for them to be like, all right, kid, here's your ticket. Go home.
Man's going to get ready for Strong Kingdom.
Oh. Are they doing that?
No.
Oh,
well, at least not yet.
Strong Kingdom. Bro, whoever's listening that's from the New Japan, U.S. contingency, do not do Strong Kingdom. It's not a good look.
So third match of the evening, we had Tenzan, Master Wato, and Risuke Taguchi defeating the Suzuki-gun team of El Desperado, Minoru Suzuki, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Master Wato finally getting his win back over Kanemaru. And so clearly they're telling the story here of Wato and Taguchi teaming up to challenge Kanemaru, who's actually back from the knee injury, and Desperado, still wearing the mask. And so we see that story tease out as well throughout these nights.
Well, it doesn't matter if he wore the mask or not, because underneath the mask is just simply Desperado at this point.
Next up, we had the Tongans, Chase Owens, Tama Tonga, Tangaloa with Master Heater Jado. They defeated the Suzuki-gun team of Doki, Taichi, and Zack Saber Jr. So obviously we are building up for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Title match with GOD versus the Dangerous Tekkers at the Dome. Doki eating the fall here. Then semi-main, we have the Empire, Great Okan, Jeff Cobb, and Will Osprey, of course, accompanied with B. Priestley. They defeated the Mega Aces of Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kazuchika Okada, and Tomioka Honma.
Wait, the Mega Aces lost? That's crazy. That's insane.
Surprise, right?
Yeah, and they left him laying afterwards, right?
Yeah, so also this was to build the Osprey-Okada match and the Tanahashi-Okan match. And I gotta say, I like what I saw from Okan and Tanahashi when they were mixing it up in this match.
That's not always an indication as to whether a match will or won't be good, but it is a little key indicator. Or not key, because key sounds like too important. It's a little tick mark, Yeah. You like to see it. It doesn't mean that the singles match is for sure going to be good, but I mean, more often than not, it is a good little way of telling. And yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and so a lot of the stuff between Okan and Tanahashi obviously was surrounding around the knee. Okan was trying to get him in knee bars and leg submissions, and Tanahashi kind of had that scouted and was fighting out of that. So clearly, I'm guessing that's going to be part of their story for the Dome as well. Okan targeting, the damaged knees of Tanahashi. Tanahashi trying to have to fight out and, fight from underneath there.
Very possibly.
Yeah. Then the main event this night, we had the Bullet Club team of Dick Togo, Evil, and Jay White defeating the LIJ team of Bushi, Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito. So obviously this match was to build up the potential of Jay and Naito. If Naito beats Ibushi on night one, we're also building up Sanada and Evil, who'll be facing off in the Tokyo Dome. Then also there was the hints of possibly dissension between Jay White and Evil. It was mainly just based off of body language and just the way they were looking at each other, but they worked fine here in this matchup, this was the Bullet Club. They showed no issues as far as working together and were able to defeat LIJ.
While we've been a little critical of this Double Night Gold, whatever you want to call it, because they don't have an official title for it this year.
Yeah.
This is the main events that they have running each night. By my estimation, are probably the most interesting things on these Road 2 shows. Just because they're switching it up a little bit each night, and you're getting a little tease to each particular possibility every night, which is cool. And I liked this a lot. And like you mentioned, there were some little teases to the dissension between Evil and Jay, but nothing full blown. And ultimately, they left all these guys laying. And then that picture that we got at the end of the night with Jay White standing with both belts. Now listen, I wouldn't call us Jay White guys per se, although I think we were higher on the guy early on than a lot of other, pundits and people, including Dave Meltzer.
Surprise.
We got heat last week for me, kind of like burying him on the show. Let's be very clear. I like Dave Meltzer, but I don't think he was big on Jay early on, and I think we were like, he's kind of good. I don't want to see him walk away with the double gold, but Jay White is extremely popular here in the States when it comes to the fan base, and I saw a lot of love from people online seeing him standing there with the double gold. And I gotta say, with the kind of shape that he's gotten himself into,
dude, he looked great with the double titles.
He looked great with the double. I don't want to see it necessarily, not yet. I'm not like advocating that he should win. I think that'd be like probably the worst booking scenario. For sure. For sure, that would be the worst booking scenario out of all three of these, at least in my opinion. But man, he looked good with both those belts. He looked like a real champion.
Yeah.
I aspire to have a body like Jay White.
Yeah, man. Shredded,
yoked.
has the washboard abs. Yeah, this looks incredible. Also, he had a new briefcase.
Oh yeah, that thing, they're gonna sell some of those.
Yeah.
That thing's kind of hard, except for you're a mark if you buy one. But yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So that was night one of the tour. At least the first night that was televised, because there were several nights that happened before these nights. But that was the first night that was televised. Second night we had here Tuesday, December 22nd, Bad Luck Fale and Chase Owens defeating Toru Yano and Tomioka Hanma. This was to build the KOPW match that will be happening on the December 23rd show, with the stipulation being announced that it is a body slam match, or first person to take off all four corner pads will be the winner.
Now let's basically explain this if you're not understanding. So you can win one of two ways. You can either body slam your opponent, thus earning you the victory by doing a literally over the head, straight down body slam. Or if you happen to be the first person to take all four corner pads off. Now, here's my confusion about this, right? We see similar, and this too, I'm going a little bit more in depth than this thing deserves. But let's think about it for a second. When you're in a strap match, let's say, generally speaking, you have to touch each of the four corners in a row, mm-hmm. and it cannot be broken up. Like, there can't be any interruptions. You basically have to incapacitate the other guy to where you're free to go 1, 2, 3, 4. But they're doing a last corner pad standing match, so it's like if Yano takes 2 or 3 of them off, and then Fale takes the final one off, does that get Fale the victory? Do they have young lions? Maybe when you take them off, if it gets interrupted, they have young lions are going to stand by and put them back on because the count was interrupted. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Honestly, I think you're putting way more thought into it than they are.
I put way more thought into the KOPW this whole year than they did.
Yeah.
It's very clear and evident.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't think they even thought that far. I'm pretty sure it's going to be. Actually, I'm hoping that Fale wins.
Me too. So he can fucking destroy the shit and it just be done. This is the gimmick title that never had any true, actual, quote unquote, real gimmick matches. Like, they were all just variations of your standard one-on-one matches.
Yeah, it's supposed to be something great that was going to freshen up these shows, right?
You know what's funny when it comes to gimmicks in New Japan? I found this this way on Cage Match to go back further than I knew how to previously in the archives and find like any kind of match that's out there. I found a bunch of gimmick matches that never made, like they happened, they were on house shows, but they're not on tape for New Japan. A bunch of nail board death matches from the like early 70s. And that they used to do those in JWA. Basically it would be like they'd have a bed of nails on the outside of the ring. So you couldn't go outside.
Gotcha. Force you to stay inside.
Or if you did, you'd get cut up by a bunch of nails on the ground. Or another one, they had a bunch of they had fence matches in New Japan early on. Inoki did, which is essentially a cage match, just a really short. They used to call them fence matches back. I don't know if you know that back in the old. Yeah, back in the original cage matches were not called cage matches. They were called fence matches, and they were usually like chicken wire or like some other kind of fence concoction, and they were just shorter. And yeah, Inoki had a few. Also, there was a ladder match in like 2008 on one of those New Japan Produce shows that Makabe was in, and I never knew about this, but I think it's him and Tanahashi. On a produce show. Like there is tape of it. I've never seen it, but it exists. Is in Korakuen. Happened way before Tanahashi and Elgin or Omega.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Omega and Elgin, wasn't it?
Right, because Tanahashi got hurt.
Yeah, but that exists. It's out there.
So moving on to the next matchup, we had Tenzan, Taguchi, and Master Wato defeating Suzuki, Desperado, and Kanemaru. This time, Taguchi picks up the win over Kanemaru. So again, them solidifying that, Taguchi and Wato post-match, they were pointing at the titles and saying they wanted the title. So
they've been teasing this since the Super Juniors, and they were the one team that beat them during the round robin tournament. So it makes sense that they would they're probably setting up a Wrestle Kingdom match between these two teams.
Yeah. So then we had G.O.D. and Nujiro defeating Taichi, Zack, Saber Jr., and Doki. Very similar story to the night before. Also, just once again, it's a preview, a build for the tag title match. One thing that I failed to mention about the match on the 21st, the finish was awesome. Doki goes for the daybreak DDT, and Tama catches him with the gun stun, lays him out, gets the win here. They teased that finish here. This time, Doki was going for the daybreak, and Tanga Loa caught him, almost hit the ape shit off of that. But then there was a final sequence, but eventually Tanga Loa was able to hit the ape shit on Doki, get the win here. Post match, they had laid out Tekers and Doki and God standing strong here.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. Just it'll be interesting what goes down come Wrestle Kingdom time.
And another funny spot in this match was when Jado was trying to use the kendo stick, and Doki came with a pipe and fended off Jado with his pipe. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Then we had, coming off of intermission, we had Tetsuya Naito, Sanada, and Hiromu defeating Evil, Dick Togo, and Taiji Ishimori. So previewing here, Taiji and Hiromu, Evil, and Sanada. Kind of your standard LIJ versus Bullet Club affair here.
Yeah, great moment at the end, seeing them all do the fist bump and just kind of acknowledging that they're all on separate paths come Wrestle Kingdom time, but they're all still a united front as LIJ. And, they all three of them got pretty big matches in front of them. And in the case of Naito and Hiromu, possibly two big matches in front of them.
Right, yeah. And, they took a picture afterwards. Hiromu had his trophy laid out. Naito had his titles laid out. And Sanada, well, he was just there.
Bro, Sanada has held nothing all year. Remember, early in February or March when Shingo and Bushi and Evil were the 6-man champions, and they did that photo shoot. They've all got belts, and then there's just fucking Sanada over there looking fly as hell, but literally with no gold. Everybody else has gold in the entire group except for him.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's crazy. Maybe you should have turned to that guy. He had some motivations. I don't know. But yeah.
So then, semi-main event, we had Great Okan, Jeff Cobb defeating Shingo and Bushi. So preview match of the Never title match between Cobb and Shingo. Great stuff here. Shingo having to fight from underneath. They tell a story here of Cobb being stronger than Shingo, and Shingo just having a hard time, muscling around Cobb like he does his other opponents. So
it's true.
Good story there, and so I'm sure we'll see that play out once they face off in the Dome. I also like the interaction between Shingo and Okan. I think Okan has a future in the Never division.
I mean, it's almost like someone might have called that this group was full of strong style, Hoss boys.
And something else I like about the Empire, they've been winning their matches clean. So it's good that we have a heel stable that's not fully relying on cheating to get wins.
Right, and when they do, inevitably there's going to be some cheating because it's wrestling. That's the name of the game. But if it's overwhelmingly, not necessarily run-ins, not necessarily ref bumps or foreign objects, and every now and again, you make these guys look strong, then you can kind of excuse it when they have to go. And what it does there too, when they show that they have to get dirty to win a match, it makes their opponent look stronger, because they were the one guy or girl or whoever that they couldn't put away the way they normally do. Their regular tactics didn't work. Mm-hmm. If you have to cheat to beat every single person, ELP, I mean, I guess it does kind of work because you look like a chicken shit, and you're garnering heat, and that's good. But eventually, it becomes nothing because everybody could hypothetically beat you, but you're just this guy that's cheating it, and it stops drawing eventually. You know what I mean?
Right.
I do think less is more is a more effective approach, in my opinion.
And it doesn't help that you have multiple people that are doing it as well.
In the company, yeah. And so the general feeling of and perception of the entire product is going to be, not favorable when it's across the board.
Right.
Because no one's special because everyone's doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Then the main event this night, we had Jay White, Kenta, and Gato defeat Kota Ibushi, Juice Robinson, and Show. That's right. A match with Gato on the side was the winning side. So, yeah.
Gato wins.
Very rarely.
Gato wins. Get out of here with that.
But yeah, so obviously they were previewing the potential of Jay and Ibushi on night 2. And then, like we mentioned, there's been this thing going on between Kenta and Juice for the U.S. contract. So post-match, Kenta got on the mic and told him, Juice, that he accepts his challenge for Wrestle Kingdom. So Kenta will defend his right to challenge contract for the U.S. title against Juice at the Dome. Like we mentioned, there is a press conference happening midnight tonight after we record this episode. So I'm sure that match will be finalized and we'll know which night that's on by the time we do our preview for next week. We had a question here from Dan. He says, let's say Mox is in Japan and Kenta vs. Juice for the case is set for night 1. Would it be better to announce his match with the winner for night 2 now, or have him show up unannounced and challenge the winner at the end of that match for night 2?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on what he's even allowed to do. I could see a scenario where Mox is not really even allowed to wrestle. Maybe that might seem like superfluous for him to even be there, but I could see Moxley being the kind of guy that, because here's the deal. He hasn't been on TV for AEW since he dropped the belt. So the idea that maybe he's in Japan quarantining, it is a possibility. I think it's an unlikelihood, but it's definitely out there. But I don't even know if he's even allowed to wrestle. So maybe there's a possibility that we could see a similar situation, or if he is, he's not allowed to job.
Right.
So I think that those are all kind of political caveats to throw out there. But let's just say there's no restrictions. I think it really depends. I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. On the one hand, will it draw more attention? Will more people subscribe to New Japan World? Will more people buy tickets for night 2 if it was announced ahead of time? Yes, that's probably the case. But then there's also that sort of like holy shit factor where, night one, in my estimation, is usually the better drawing night. At least it was last year, because that's the traditional day people attend and go to and everything. And I also think it's on paper the better looking card right now than January 5th. So maybe there could be a trade-off where you're like, you know what, we'll go with the element of surprise, have him do whatever on the first night, and then maybe the walk-up tickets do better on night 2 because of that, sort of like anticipation and surprise. And maybe more people here in the States will, like, as opposed to just hearing it in a press conference, I think people react more to the angle sort of thing. But I mean, it's a one-day build, so I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'll be very similar if they do a surprise. It'll be similar to the Suzuki moment last year, where we had no idea that he was going to come out and attack Moxley. So
the only thing with that though is we had an extra month to build to the actual match, which was way later on. They didn't give it away
the next day.
Yeah. Or even that night, because we kind of thought we're like, oh shit, Suzuki's in gear.
That man was ready to run it, like right then and there.
Yeah, he was in full gear, like his name was Pac. For those of you that don't know, Pac always is in gear. Like, that man does not dress in regular clothes. Watch him in any clip in WWE or AEW. Like he's literally just
man stays in the gear.
He stays in his gear.
Then the final night that we'll have for this Road 2 show airing Wednesday, December 23rd. So we have Tiger Mask, Taguchi, and Wato teaming up against Tsuji, Mori, and Gabriel Kidd. We'll have Shingo, Sonata, and Hiromu taking on Evil, Dick, and Taiji Ishimori. Then we'll have the KOPW 2020 match, the Body Slam or Last Corner Pad, with Yano defending his provisional KOPW championship against Bad Luck Fale. Then we'll have Jay White and Kenta against Juice and Toa Hanare. Semi-main, Okada, Tanahashi, and Honma against the Empire. And then the main event, Naito and Bushi versus Kota Ibushi and Sho.
Yeah, I mean, most of this show looks exactly, on paper, similar to the shows we saw previously. So I think we've already kind of run down most story elements here. It is the last show, though, before Wrestle Kingdom, so I'm feeling like there might be a little bit of a ramp up. There might be a few bigger angles. I mean, the two things that are interesting, depending on how you feel about it, the KOPW title defense, and this is not the provisional title. This is for the title. Whoever wins this is the guy in the KOPW division.
Right.
But Naito and Ibushi as a preview match at the end of it all, that with Bushi and Sho there, that might end up being a low-key banger.
Yeah, that could be a really good match.
Yeah, and I think it has the potential to do really well. So
yeah. Well, that wraps up Road to Tokyo Dome. By the time you guys listen to this, you probably already know the results, and hopefully we see snow falling at the end of that show. And then, real quick here, New Japan Strong, they had night 2 of Detonation on December 18th. We had our good friend Rocky Romero getting revenge on Day Limelight and defeating him. We had babyface Jeff Cobb defeating NXT's Russ Taylor. In semi-main, we had Fred Rosser and PJ Black defeating JR Kratos and Tom Lawler. And then in the main event, Kenta defended his briefcase against Brody King. Any thoughts on the Detonation?
Brody King's a loser. He lost that final battle this week, and he lost this opportunity
on the same night.
On the same night, yeah. I mean, he's a hard worker. You got to give him that, but yeah, I mean, not really. Danny Limelight, I don't know. Hopefully he'll be coming back. Sounds like he might be AEW bound. This might have been his send-off.
Yeah.
Which Team Filthy's not looking too strong. If Danny Limelight's gone and Tyler Rust, that's his name, right?
Yeah, his NXT name, yeah.
Tyler Rust are gone. Danny Limelight takes a big loss. Russ Taylor takes a big loss. I don't know, man.
Yeah, then Kratos and Lawler lost this night also, so...
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the weakest stables we've ever had. Bro, we've been asking for new stables for years. We finally get a new stable, Team Filthy, And I think they're already gone.
Yeah. Man. So yeah, that wraps up the Nation.
But I didn't watch this shit.
Completely honest, I did not watch it either. So moving on to the news, like we've been mentioning, there is a press conference that's happening midnight our time, December 23rd for Wrestle Kingdom. I'm assuming they will be announcing the rest of the cards. They'll be announcing which night Kenta and Juice will be on. They'll be announcing Suzuki-gun defending the junior tag titles against Wato and Gucci. I'm sure there will be some kind of never six-man title match, and so we'll kind of get all those dots filled in there for the rest of the cards.
Yeah, I'll probably tune in tomorrow and check it out. Based on what we're seeing, there's not much that's too exciting to me. I mean, I guess the idea of Kenta Juice is a little bit cool, but I mean, the majority of what they're filling out the rest of the card with isn't anything that like I'm gonna go gaga over or anything like that.
Right.
And I'm still like, what's Ishii doing? What's Suzuki doing?
Well, Ishii, he's got those narrow six-man titles to worry about.
Bro.
Well, Suzuki, he's been facing off with Tenzan on this tour. Maybe we'll have...
I saw that, too.
Suzuki versus Tenzan.
Well, there was also speculation of him against Yumura.
That's right. Yumura, after one of the matches, called out Suzuki.
Yeah, but young lions just be talking out the side of their mouth, though.
But, he made a good point. He says he has no match for the Dome. Suzuki has no match for the Dome. Why not run it, him and Suzuki?
I would like that. But it seems like such a downgrade from the kind of year that Minoru Suzuki had. I don't know.
Right. Also, Wrestle Kingdom related, it was announced that there would be a match featuring Stardom wrestlers happening at Wrestle Kingdom 15. Similar to what we saw at last year's event. There was a dark match with the Stardom ladies. So it looks like we'll be getting something very similar this year as well.
I mean, in general, I'm not opposed to it. I think that's great. But, like, we're not going to be able to see it.
Right.
And because we're not going to be able to see... One of the problems I have, too, is, like, why can't either group stream it is my problem. Is, like, I understand that there's television rights issues between the two different groups that they're both aligned with. But... I don't know what the legalities with streaming are, but like my thinking is why can't if it's a Stardom match, why can't Stardom have the rights to the match and just they have the streaming rights for it so we could see the shit, Right. I really would have liked to see last year's match and we never got to see it. And, and again, this is kind of my argument for like all the, what's funny? All the people that wanted to start this narrative about, oh, when are we going to get a Stardom match? I didn't see shit on their timelines. I didn't see shit about them being like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm so stoked. I can't wait to see this. You know why? Because they can't, and they don't watch it. So It's bullshit.
We have a question here from Viking Pain. Thoughts on Stardom being a part of Wrestle Kingdom again this year? Is this the beginning of bigger things to come, like Women in New Japan, or just Bushiroad throwing the sister promotion a bone?
I'm not saying it's impossible. I mean, I think it would depend, we've talked about it on the show plenty of times. Over the years, they've tried a lot of different times to incorporate women and have partnerships with Joshi promotions. And I think that if there was an opportunity from a market perspective for them to incorporate women and it made sense and they would profit from it, I don't think it's impossible. And so I definitely think that this would be a step in the right direction to that happening. But I also think it's highly unlikely. I think it's most likely just a show of goodwill and faith between two partnered companies.
Yeah, I think the same. Yeah, they definitely know Bushiroad does have plans to elevate Stardom and have run in bigger buildings and make it a big deal. So why not, use your biggest event of the year, Wrestle Kingdom, to highlight this other product that you have to get people's eyes on it.
Yeah, you don't try to elevate one company by putting them in Budokan so that maybe down the road you can de-emphasize them and integrate them into a different company.
Right.
Their goal is to have a women's version of New Japan called Stardom.
Right.
The goal there is not to, get them to a level where like, oh, now we can bring them into the No, they want to They want to
They want 4 nights of Tokyo Dome, 2 for New Japan, 2 for Stardom.
Yeah, they want to run the dome with the women.
Yeah,
and people don't fucking get that. They don't. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and two, you got to think about the fan base. Because right now there's this assumption that women wrestling fans only want to watch women's wrestling. That has proven not to be true. New Japan's fan base, it's majority women, and they are perfectly fine with the way New Japan is set up, and even
What does it take to end cyber attacks? At Cyber Reason, we can tell you exactly what it takes. It takes an army of battle-tested defenders on a mission. Defenders who fight foes that operate under the cover of digital darkness. Defenders who think, move, and adapt faster than cyber attackers. Defenders with the technology and effortless automation to spot an attack forming on computers, mobile devices, servers, and the cloud, and alert you when it matters most. To end cyber attacks, it takes the brightest minds in global cyber intelligence working to deliver future-ready protection to guard your data wherever the fight moves. Cyber Reason is ready to win the battle with you and for you. In the fight to end cyber attacks, we are the defenders. Join us to reverse the adversary attacks with proactive protection against ever-evolving threats. Cyber Reason. End cyber attacks from endpoints to everywhere. Learn more at cyberreason.com. That's CYBEREASON.com.
Shifting gears, let's talk Southern California traffic. Most of us spend a lot of time in our cars, so having the right one makes all the difference in the world. You want a car that's reliable, safe, and has superior performance. That's Toyota. From the RAV4 to the Tundra to the best-selling Camry, Toyota offers a more comfortable trip from point A to point B. Plus, Toyota has a full line of super efficient hybrids. Visit buyatoyota.com to find a model that fits your lifestyle. Your Southern California Toyota dealers make it easy. Toyota, let's go places.
AEW heels, there are a ton of women in there who like, just men's wrestling as well.
Well, in Japan, right now anyways, when it comes to Stardom, the majority of their fan base
are men.
I wouldn't say a majority of New Japan's fan base are women, but they have a larger female fan base than almost any other wrestling company in the world. And, it's pretty simple. Sex sells. And, they got hot dudes in New Japan. Probably, literally, my girlfriend mentioned it. She's like, there's, more hot guys in New Japan than any other wrestling company. I was like, ding, ding, ding. It's idol culture.
Right.
Same thing in Stardom. They've got, good-looking women. Why do you think the men fucking watch it? I do wish, though, because, I'm not going to sit here and claim to be the biggest Joshi head, but, if you want to give me some, Lioness Asuka and, some Jaguar Yokota, I'm down with that because I like that old school shit. And, there was a time where, when Joshi was in their heyday, the majority of the fan base were teenage girls. And, Joshi was, Sailor Moon and shit like that. They were superheroes. It was awesome. And it hasn't been like that for a long time. I wish there would be some element of that again.
Yeah, that would be dope. So in other news, we had the free match of the week this week is Riki Choshu versus Tenryu from the Tokyo Dome on 1993.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this, you definitely need to watch it. That was going to be my recommended match of the week a few weeks ago. Instead, I went with Tenryu and Hashimoto, but I almost went with this one because I was trying to keep it strong style / King's Road, and this might be it probably is the best, no, it's not the best, but it's one of the better examples of those two styles clashing in the Tokyo Dome, and if you haven't seen it, you definitely need to watch it. It's an old man hoss battle. It's awesome.
Yeah, I want to check that out this week.
Bro, Tenryu, the only man in history to cleanly pin both Baba and Inoki.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Also, the 2021 New Japan Soul Sports tracksuits are now available for pre-order on the Token Shop Global. First time ever that NJPW is releasing their iconic tracksuits simultaneously in Japan and worldwide. So if you need to upgrade your tracksuit, get the 2021 version, get those orders in now. And last thing here, you could watch NJPW Strong's Best Moments of 2020 for free this Friday, December 25th, Christmas Day, on New Japan World, YouTube, and Fight TV.
Interesting. I might check that out just to kind of do a little, catch up. But that's going to do it for the news. We got a lot of questions here. Let's run through this shit.
Yeah. So first from EMJ Does PR in the Discord. He says, first, just want to say thanks for persevering through this year, recording these shows and keeping the quality so consistent. No garrote wires or heaters needed. It's really appreciated.
Well, actually, our slew of hosts are our heaters of guest hosts. But no, we really appreciate those heartfelt words.
And secondly, he says, what are the odds Ibushi becomes God, but only for a day? Is Gator really about that kind of heat?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen plenty of scenarios where we thought people... I mean, one situation that comes to mind is like we kind of thought for years that we're like, Sonata gets closer and closer and closer every New Japan Cup. I don't remember if it was this year or I think it was this year. We were like, now's the time. And then they just didn't do it. So sometimes they do stuff like that. And some people call it heat. I think they like to book tragedies more than they like to book heat, personally.
Look, these long build tragedies where it's like a long odyssey for the person to get redemption and finally get that moment in the sun.
But I really think Ibushi's winning both nights. So
that's the best booking. That's the right call. But we'll see what happens.
We'll see. Next question from Imp. He asked us what's Imp at Damn Implications?
At the Damn Implicat.
Okay. After last Wrestle Kingdom, I was all for Ibushi waiting his turn, but thanks to 2020, did Naito really get his that's weird. Really get his year? Is it really time to crown Ibushi, or do you give it Naito a bit more of a run thanks to plans being scuppered by the pandemic? So I was a little confused about the way this one was written.
Why?
I'm just not following. Is he saying like basically they need to go with Naito or go with Ibushi here? Is that?
Well, that's what he's asking. He's like, should they go with Naito since he didn't get 2020 should have been his year, but it wasn't, or is it just time to go with Ibushi?
Okay, I see. I mean, honestly, this was his year. This was his year. And I mean, I'm not a Naito hater. I know, sometimes we might come off that way, but in all seriousness, I'm really not. I like Naito. I have for years. But those knees aren't getting better. His neck's not getting better. His in-ring work is not getting better. I thought he had a fine year. I understand that there was a pandemic. I understand it's unfair. I understand that they booked him with Evil 4 times, and that's not his fault. But this was his year. Now, you could go with him again. I think there is a possibility that happens from a business perspective. But to me, you need to go with Ibushi because Ibushi is at the zenith when it comes to his athletic prime that's probably dwindling day after day, and you're going to miss it. And you're going to pull a Naito part 2 if you wait too long to go with this guy. And we're going to be right back at square one. Ibushi needs to be made into the man right now. And then once they do that, we need to get ready for the next generation, which I think that Ibushi's the guy to do that, not necessarily Naito.
Yeah, and I feel like if Ibushi loses, they just completely make him a geek. Like, he loses the briefcase, the first guy to lose the briefcase, then he loses first night on the Dome, left out in the cold for night 2. Like, you completely, I know people overuse this word, but I think it's almost a burial of him if he's losing the briefcase, losing on night 1, and then doing nothing night 2. Like you mentioned, like, this guy is at, the peak of his athletic ability. He can have a great match with anybody. We've seen that no matter the style, strong style, more submission-based style. If you want to kick him, if he wants to throw kicks for 20 minutes, he can do that, So he can work with these, great Okons and guys that are going to be, the next, class of guys to take over New Japan.
Interesting thing about Ibushi. We make a lot out of the idea that there have been a slew of or handful of Gaijin wrestlers who have ever held the IWGP title because it's rare. Even rarer, and people don't talk about it, is how many domestic stars have ever held the IWGP title that did not come out of the dojo. Do you know how many it's ever been, Jeremy?
No.
2.
Wow.
There have only been 2 men who, and maybe I could be wrong, but to the best of my recollection, I went over the list the other day and I looked, and every single domestic star that has ever held this title came out of that funky Nogi dojo. I don't even know if it was always called the Nogi dojo, but the two men are Tenryu, who was so big a star basically by the time that they decided to put the belt on him that like it was undeniable. Plus, they didn't put that belt on him until like 1998 when he was old. And then the other one is Yoshihiro Takayama, who held belts, you know, pretty much in all the other companies, but also was a major, major star coming out of Pride Fighting Championship and you know, the wars he had with Don Fry and all that sort of shit. And like those are two big enough stars that they kind of transcended the, you know, just with their work and then also with their charisma and their, you know, mass appeal that it kind of warranted them getting those title runs. But every other star that was domestic has held the title, and it's, or, you know, has come out of the dojo. I think the last time a domestic star that was non-dojo affiliated was with Takayama was like 2003, 2004. So we're talking like 16, 17 years since this has happened. It would be a big deal if Ibushi, because Ibushi didn't come through the dojo at all. You know, and the guy's been with the company, I mean, on and off for a decade.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I hope he gets it.
I'm just saying that to say, like, if they didn't go with him,
there's a reason why.
There might be a reason why.
Yeah.
But if they do go with him, it'll be extremely historic. But I think from a business perspective, you guys put a lot into this guy. He signed the freaking contract. Like, if you want to juice, you know, get the juice out of the squeeze, now's the time to do it. You're going to fuck it up if you
wait longer. Yeah. So next question here from Sir Sam. Who do you predict will be the breakout in 2021, and who will be the wrestler of the year in 2021?
I think Will Osprey is going to be the breakout star of the year in 2021. Just because he's the head of a new group, and I think they're really going heavy with that group. I also think he'll most likely be the wrestler of the year next year. Although I think Kota Ibushi is I'll actually go with Kota Ibushi because he's going to have the title, and I think that that's a safe bet. I don't know that would be the fact, but I mean, if you had put let's just say if Ibushi's 2020 had been surrounded by the IWGP title and he had the kind of output he had, there'd be no doubt who the fucking wrestler of the year was. Yeah. So yeah.
For the breakout star, I'm going to say Great Okan. I think the match, I'm seeing similarities with the Jay White match, and whether he wins or loses, it's going to set him up to have a great 2021, and I think we're going to see him get pushed more and have more opportunities, and I think he's really going to break out and impress people. And then, you know, a year from now, we'll have to say, oh, now everybody's a fan of Okan all of a sudden.
Right.
As far as wrestler of the year, I mean, yeah, Osprey is a great choice. Ibushi is a great choice. I think Shingo Takagi could be a great choice in that role as well.
I'm not going Shingo because nothing is telling me right now that they're going with the guy.
Right.
And I think that the two guys we mentioned they're going with. And some people might be listening and be like, breakout star Osprey, how is that possible? Because they are putting him into a new stratosphere by putting him at the head of a faction and letting him feud with Okada. Also, one thing, I don't know if this is confirmed yet. I haven't heard anyone else talk about it, but if you, I mentioned this to Jeremy tonight. If you go look at the lineup for night 1, the main event that they have listed is Okada Osprey. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the main event, but it's just weird because it looks like they do have it purposefully ordered, and it's just weird. You would think Naito and Ibushi would be the top of the list, but for some reason they've got Okada Osprey.
Yeah, and I don't know. For some reason, I'm feeling like that'll get changed once the press conference happens and they announce the full cards and final order, but
I'm hoping so. I don't think Okada Osprey should headline.
No, not at all.
But I mean, if it did, that would kind of tell you what the company is still thinking when it comes to, you know, Kazuchika Okada, even without the title.
Right. Next question here from our user Asayo Jimbo. He says, Def Triangle 720 asked this here on the sub, but it's a good question. How do you think New Japan should handle their U.S. expansion post-coronavirus?
Okay. It's an interesting question because I've mentioned this to other people. I don't know if I think I talked a little bit about it with Rich Kraetsch earlier on the episode, but if they want to do well here, I think the decision that would be the most cost effective, the most expansive, and the most beneficial would be to get a TV deal and to do another recap show, because that's one of the things that propelled them into success the first time. But let's face the fact, they don't have a TV deal, so there's nowhere to like do a recap show. You can't do it on New Japan World because all that shit's already on New Japan World. You're just showing people stuff that they've probably already seen and that already exists. The other thing too is if I lobbied for that, I'm also lobbying for people that are working here stateside to not work, which does kind of suck. But it might be a necessary evil, provided that they still are just gonna keep doing shows here or doing, tapings. I don't know how they handle that. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, so I agree with you on the TV deal. We kind of talked about that in the first half of the show with Rich Kraetsch, how important that Access TV deal with. I definitely think 2021 needs to be, that should be a number one goal, get some kind of TV deal and not put Strong on it, put the recap show that shows the big matches so you can capture some new eyes. As far as scheduling wise, as far as live events, I don't think they should do those tours that they were doing last year or this year. Like we've said on this show several times, I think they need to do maybe 2 to 3 really big shows spread out throughout the year that fit into their calendar in big areas and build up cards for them.
And this is post-coronavirus, is the way. Okay.
Right, post-corona.
Yeah, I would agree that you need to do big shows. I'm thinking, too, that you continue your partnerships with some of these outside companies, namely Ring of Honor. Right now, what it feels like they're doing is it feels like Strong and all that is them just treading water to keep some sort of U.S. presence until they are ready to do something stateside. And I'm not saying they have a grand plan, because I think they've shown us time and time again they don't have a good plan in place for the U.S. But I think that at least what they're trying to do is like, we can't get any of our guys there. We don't have a TV deal. Let's just kind of maintain a presence until we're ready for the next step. But I don't think they should be doing those mini tours at all. I agree with you. I think if they're going to do shows, I think maybe they do like 3 mid-size shows,
Mm-hmm.
and then 1 big show like the show in New York. And I think they should continue to work with outside companies and try and build that way, But even that just seems sketchy. Like, I'm thinking about like live attendance. I mean, I know people will be wanting to go back to seeing live wrestling, but I'm also thinking there's going to be a lot of people who won't want to go back to watching it live right away. And how much does that expenditure cost New Japan? If they rent out a big building and do all the press and all that, fly all the guys over.
You can't fill it.
Yeah, and then they don't draw.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
This is just something, I know people don't want to hear this, but like, it did not hurt New Japan's overall business. So let me just be clear about that. New Japan, from a financial standpoint, is fine. But when it comes to the U.S., they fucked themselves by letting all those guys go to AEW, because that's a show that they should have had 2 years ago. And ROH could have had too if Sinclair had the forethought. And it is something that was kind of presented to them, if the stories are to be believed based on what the Young Bucks have said. But they let all those guys go. Those were their domestic stars here in the States. And it's going to be hard to get the product over on a major scale without the major stars that they let go, because they created their own competition.
Right.
For better or for worse.
Next question here from our user Guilty Watts. When and how will the titles be split? Will the IC be merged into the heavyweight title, or are we doing double gold for the foreseeable future?
It's a great question. It's something that I felt was easier to answer in the past when it came to Naito, especially because I thought Naito had it out by being able to sort of just drop the title. I mean, one thing they could do, and we've talked about this before, is they could maybe make the New Japan Cup this year for the white belt and establish it that way. But like realistically, I mean, I really don't have a good answer for you because it's been unified for so long now. It's like
it's essentially a double crown at this point.
Yeah, and I don't like that. I mean, I really don't. And one thing too is they never defended them separately, which I could see the positives and the negatives of doing that, but it's something that Naito wanted to do and they just never went with.
Right.
I don't think you should lose that lineage of the white title of the IC belt. I think they need to split them up.
Yeah, and I think as far as double gold for the future, I think as long as there's a double championship, I think it's a crutch for double gold dash to happen every year.
I mean, here's a scenario where I could see them having a double gold, right? The NWA folds, they buy the title, you know, and they don't need 2 world titles, but they've got them. And, you know, so now they need to kind of fold it into the IWGP, but they want to still honor the lineage. I mean, that's kind of exactly what happened in All Japan, something very similar to that. You know, now you need a double gold, you know, and you've got 2 things that are on equal footing, but the IC belt was integral to their business. And it's also just so convoluted the way they've been booking this thing for the Tokyo Dome the last 2 years. So I think they should split them. I like my idea, and I think it's something that you've echoed in the past as well, is like, let's just do the New Japan Cup. Let's just give them the white belt. I know normally the winner gets a shot at the title, but I think if they were smart, they could maybe book an angle prior to that so that there's some sort of personal conflict between you know, the IWGP champion and whoever the challenger is for Sakura Genesis or whatever, you know, the big April show is. And then that way it kind of gives them an out from even needing to have the IWGP title part of the New Japan Cup.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
You want to hear something Rich said to me the other day?
What?
Some people are not going to like this, but this is just something Rich said to me the other day while we were driving. Rich was like, what if Kenny Omega shows up at the Dome? Like,
well, I said that to Rich.
Oh, yeah, I think he told me that you said that to him. And then he was like, you know, then basically they set up a match between them. And then I said, you know what would be like even better? And there's probably some people groaning hearing this right now, but this would be pretty cool. Kenny shows up, Ibushi wins, blah, 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 and then Kenny shows up, right? And then Kenny challenges him at the Tokyo Dome, but not next year.
That night?
No, not that night. Like in April.
Another dome.
Another dome in the middle of the year.
Wow.
You know, because they can only do limited capacity anyways.
Right.
And if they had a big enough match, I mean, that's something that their business probably could really, really, really use. You know what I mean? And I mean, if I was going to see Kenny Omega come back and fight anybody, that's the scenario I would want. I would want him to fight Kota Ibushi in the Dome for the titles, because that's the story that was left, you know, unresolved.
Right,
that's
right.
the big match for me.
Yeah.
So that would be awesome.
Yeah, I would love that.
And it's never going to happen.
Next question from Rainbow and Slam Pig. Who should be holding the top titles leaving the Dome on January 5th? Who will be holding them?
I'm estimating it's going to be Ibushi in both cases.
Yes, it should be Ibushi. Again, the way this year has been, anything could happen. We will be giving our official predictions next week, so stay tuned for that.
With Chris Samsa.
Yes, with Chris Samsa from voicesofwrestling.com. Rainbow also asked, what was your favorite part of NJPW in 2020?
The Never division, hands down. Very simple answer.
Yep, both Never. Yeah, the Never Openweight and the Never 6-man titles. I love it so much. That's what I wrote my essay for the Voices of Wrestling ebook that will be coming out soon.
Yo, put my name on that.
What do you mean put your name on it?
You know, like when like it's like Christmas time and like one sibling bought the parents a gift and the other one didn't, but like you just kind of go in on it. So from Josh and Jeremy,
gotcha.
Do that shit.
Gotcha. So it's like the science project where the one kid does all the work, but y'all are partners, but you still put your name on it.
Hell yes. Put my name on it, bro. You can, I mean, whatever money you make, you can keep it. I just want some credit. That's all.
Last thing here, he said, no question, just happy holidays to you guys and your loved ones. Thanks for all you do to entertain and enlighten us all.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Let's make 2021 an even bigger year. And whatever you guys can do to help us grow, because we want to get, you know, I feel like we put out an incredible product and like it's growing, but I'd like to see it, you know, get even bigger.
Yes.
A lot bigger. I got a big vision for this show, so
nice.
I'm really just using it to propel me into wrestling. No, I'm just playing.
Next question here from Reddit user WizFactor. As we approach mass vaccinations and hopeful return to shouting crowds next year, do you feel the crowd reactions will permanently change even after life returns to normal? I suspect there will be less laughing and booing in 2021 than there was in 2019.
It's a really tough question to answer. It's definitely a possibility. I could see mask wearing becoming a major part of the culture just internationally, even here in the States as well, because who knows how long this is going to go on. And I mean, I won't get it all into it, but like there's a lot of questions about the various different types of mRNA vaccines that are out there right now. My girlfriend actually just got the Pfizer one recently, and you know, I guess it's a 21-day period to get a second one after that. But there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of questions we have about that. We could do a whole podcast on that, but I don't know. I could see it going both ways. I could see people becoming rowdier because they were held back.
Right, it's kind of pent up.
Yeah.
You know, you haven't been to a show in a long time. You just want to let it all out.
It could get that way. You know, so but I could also see where like maybe this is a good reset for like US fans as well, who like, I don't know, sometimes the indie crowds kind of annoy me a little bit. I like them, but you know, we are the indie crowds that I don't like. But maybe, you know, I wish people were more respectful like the way they are in Japan.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It's kind of up in the air.
Interesting question though.
Series of questions here from Reddit user Viking Pain.
Does this rundown include the questions we had from last week?
Okay. It does, yeah. So Viking Pain says, my friends and I have been talking about the double goal and how the two titles could be split, and one thing we talked about was Ibushi being the guy to split the two belts. During his press conference after winning the G1, Ibushi said about he had the WGP heavyweight title being worth more to him since he's never won it. If Ibushi wins at Wrestle Kingdom 15, I could see him vacating the IC title afterwards, and it would fit his character too. Jay White wouldn't do it, and Naito won't as well, but Ibushi, being the good guy, himbo that he is, could. They can then set up the New Japan Cup to crown a new IC champion. Thoughts?
Yeah, I like that scenario, but I disagree a little bit. I think Naito could have easily been the person to. I think storyline-wise, it makes the most sense for Naito to be the guy. Like, you know, he has a storyline reason to actually split them, you know, in a non-condescending way. Like, you know, I just talk about his previous relation to the belt and, you know, that he's thankful for it, but, you know, he's going to focus his attention on the IWGP title. But yeah, I could see them splitting it in a press conference if that's what they end up doing. I don't know if that would be the wording or the reasoning I would use if I was Ibushi. But yeah, I mean, he is kind of, you know, I don't know what the word is, quirky enough to like kind of get away with splitting him as well.
Right. Yeah, I could totally see that fits the Ibushi character, and that falls in line with what we were saying with the whole New Japan Cup thing. I think that would be a great way to crown a new IC champ.
I could see Jay White doing it too, but if Jay White did it, it would be in a very demeaning sort of heelish way.
Like, I don't need this.
Yeah. What the fuck do I need this for?
He also asks, according to recent reports, the COVID cases in Tokyo are rising. If it comes to a point that things get out of control, would Wrestle Kingdom 15 be delayed, canceled, or possibly be moved to a different city?
I I mean, I've been reading about the same thing and trying to keep up with it. I don't know for sure. I mean, we're not like experts on the domestic affairs over in Japan. So, I mean, I don't know what their public health rulings would be, but from what I've read, that other people who seem to be knowledgeable on the subject, they say no, it's not really a high likelihood, especially because Wrestle Kingdom's a week away?
2 weeks away.
2 weeks away. I mean, it would have to get pretty bad for them to do that. But I don't know. New Japan really does have the benefit of the doubt. They've had, last time we heard about it, they had no contact tracing that traced back to their events. Their protocols seem to be working. So
yeah, I would be highly surprised if it got to a point, to that kind of situation where they would have to consider canceling. He also says, okay, I'll bite since this question will come up sooner or later. Kenny Omega has recently introduced his new collector gimmick, and it seems that he's on his way to get his hands on the Impact title while already holding his AEW and AAA titles. People are already assuming that he's going to get his hands on the NWA and ROH titles, all making his way back to New Japan to fight Kota Ibushi for the IWGP title. Since you guys like to be ahead, do you think something as unprecedented as this is even possible? I personally don't. 2 companies working together is already hard enough, but now you're asking for 4 or 5 to do so as well, especially with money, egos, rivalries, and politics involved, would just be impossible.
I don't know for sure that any of that would be the case. I mean, my fanboydom of I remember reading a PWI growing up, like in the mid-90s, and someone talking about how great the Steiner brother, it might have been LOD or the Steiners, I don't really remember. They're like, I don't understand why they don't just go to ECW, win those belts, and then go to WCW, pick up those belts, go to WWF, get those belts, and then they can make their way over to Japan, get the New Japan, And I remember being like, that can happen? like the idea that someone could just go to each, group and take their title, that's fucking crazy. You know? And I also remember playing WCW versus the World. No. WCW World. Yeah, it was versus the World. Sorry, the one for PlayStation. And, they had 8 different organizations. And if you took your character and beat the league, and won the title in each of the divisions, and you unified them all into one belt, then you'd unlock the big super boss character or whatever. And that was my first kind of exposure to someone, the idea of someone going to all these different companies, like Ultima. Well, Ultima didn't really, people act like Ultima went to a bunch of companies. I mean, he won the J Crown.
Right, yeah.
But they were legitimate, belts from different companies and everything. So there is the part of me that's the fan fiction sort of fan that likes that idea, but the realist in me realizes this would be, I could see him maybe getting the NWA belt because that would benefit them, but I don't know about ROH, and I definitely don't think he's gonna come over and win the IWGP title. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very all highly unlikely. As a Kenny Omega fan, I mean, I would love that, and I mean, it would benefit those other companies in the fact that you have Kenny Omega as your champion, just the buzz and eyes on your product you would get from that. But then ultimately, you have to free up those titles. He's not going to be working every single promotion, so it would be kind of a sticky situation to get into. But yeah, well, like Mike and Payne mentioned, with all the egos and the politics, I highly doubt all that.
The one thing that Don Callis has been mentioning though is he's saying what they have planned is unprecedented and historic on a level that no one else could dream of, and it's going to change history. Now, a lot of that could just be,
callous being callous.
Yeah. But so far what they've done has been extremely interesting, extremely entertaining, and it has been historic, and it's been, I wouldn't say totally unprecedented, but in a certain way, yes, unprecedented. And he's saying that what they're planning to do is much, much bigger than that. So, I mean, there is a possibility. Kenny does have it in his contract that he's allowed to go to Japan, and, whether New Japan would want to work with him or not, it still remains to be seen. But most of these roadblocks that he brought up is, the egos, the booking, yada, yada. There's just so many, variables there. And at the end of the day, Kenny is beholden to AEW as their champion right now. So, I mean, that's the big holdup. I mean, I would be shocked to see him. I would be so shocked if he won the IWGP title. And I don't think I'd be a fan of it either. My thing is I would like to see him come challenge.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him come wrestle here, but I don't want to see him with the IWGP title right now.
Right.
Not while he's holding the AEW belt, because that, and it's not even that I care about like which is better. It's just, it's never really productive ultimately to have one guy holding major world titles in two other companies, because we saw how that played out with Stan Hansen when he was working in, he wasn't the champion per se, but when he was in All Japan and he was holding the AWA title, and then they want him to get dates and, you know, do jobs, drop the belt. And he's like, nah, Baba said I can't.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
I don't want to run into a situation where it's like, well, you know, you and Okada, you know, doing Budokan or whatever, you need to drop the belt. Nah, Tony says I can't. Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Ghetto doesn't want him to, you know, drop the belt to John Moxley or whoever, whatever.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
It's just messy.
Yeah, very messy. He also asked a non-NJPW related question, but a hot topic recently was JR's scathing comments about guys gathering like quail to catch a guy. What are your thoughts on this type of spot? Yay or nay?
Well, I think his comments, there was a lot more to his comments than just that specific thing. You know, I try to be logical when it comes to this stuff. I understand that there's a lot of bad will that Jim Ross has kind of built up with a certain section of the fan base. And there are some things behind his statements, not just what he said, but also sort of the arrogance and the attitude behind it. But ultimately, on the surface, for just what he's saying, I 100% agree. I 100% agree that it is a stupid spot when everybody is gathered up in one location waiting for the guy to jump on them. I do think that there's a way to work this spot that is both logical and effective. For the most part, I don't think that guys should be jumping on their own partners.
Right.
Unless they're just some like, I don't know, if it's Terry Funk, you know? Terry Funk gets away with it because Terry Funk's fucking crazy, you know? But
Hiromu, I could get away.
Hiromu could maybe get away with it, yes. But even now, I mean, he's not even really leaning into those crazy tendencies that he kind of used to when he first came in, you know? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. But the other thing, too, is like, I don't think they should all be standing there noticeably just waiting. That's the big scathing part about it for me. I would like it if people were brawling and it's like a chaotic mess and then they come together last minute. I also think that whoever is shooting it shouldn't be shooting the guys while they're waiting.
That is the biggest issue with it. A lot of production guys, they either hold the camera on the crowd or they cut back and forth. It's like, no, keep the camera on the guy that's on the top rope until he does a dive. Then you cut to your wide shot.
But for the most part, you know, I don't know. One way of doing this particular thing is like, if you have two teams, right? And let's say the one team is getting the upper hand on, let's say the bad guys are beating up the good guys on the outside, right? And they leave all the good guys laying. And now they're like, you know, standing over them or like, you know, congratulating each other. Then maybe it makes sense for them to be in one spot for the fourth good guy to do the big dive onto the bad guys to even things up. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in that case, he's not jumping on his own guys. I just think there's a lot of like better ways to get to that. But I do think that people lazily go into the spot. I think it has become cliched. I think there's logic there. I also don't think dives are killing the business. You know, I think some of the stuff, I don't agree with some of the things that Jim Ross said there. I think you need to, in these sorts of situations, people, it's always a all or nothing sort of thing. Well, I mean, Jim Ross has been in the business for a really, really long time, and he knows what the fuck he's talking about, but also he's an old head, so he kind of doesn't, you know, you need to eat the meat and spit out the bones.
Right.
And, you know, people don't want to do that. They because, you know, tribalism, things like that. I don't know.
Yeah. His last question, he says, recently I watched a Dragon Gate show Final Gate, and I know this is a New Japan-centric podcast, but I wanted to ask Young Boy this question since he's training to be a wrestler. During the show, Ben K was legitimately knocked out by his opponent, Shun Skywalker, but the match continued anyways, and Skywalker kept hitting Ben K with multiple moonsaults afterwards, even though it was pretty obvious he was out. If a person gets legitimately hurt in a match, is it no negligence on everyone involved, from promotion to referee to wrestlers to everyone involved to continue the match? Or is there some sort of unwritten rule inside the locker room that the show must go on regardless of the situation? Another example that comes to mind was Matt Hardy falling and hitting his head on the concrete at All Out, continuing to wrestle anyways while clearly injured.
Yeah, I mean, with that's a tough question. I mean, let's be clear. I'm not an expert on any of this. I'm in my 5th month of training. I've never worked a real show. I don't know the unwritten rules of wrestling or anything like that, but Jeremy could do the same thing as me. From an analytical standpoint, I think if someone is truly, truly hurt in a really, really bad way, I think in 2021 or 2020, I think we're at a point where, like, you need to... The one thing I will tell you, my trainer, Matt Seidel, his number one rule, and it's the biggest thing, safety is the name of the game. It is the number one rule. Before anything else that we do, safety is emphasized above all other things. So, like, I've never asked him this. I couldn't tell you what he would say, but I feel pretty confident that he would probably say if someone is completely unconscious and they're laid out, you need to at least check on them and maybe even stop the match. We've seen people die in the ring over the past couple of years, so it's not always just that they're unconscious. And, you know, you're not a doctor, they're not a doctor. I mean, how do we know that doing moonsaults to a prone body
can't kill him, yeah,
isn't killing the person? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would say no. How it's handled over there in Japan, I mean, we've seen times in New Japan where people have been knocked loopy or knocked unconscious, and the match has continued. And I think that that's something that needs to change over there, and also needs to be handled differently here in the States.
Yeah, I agree with you. If a guy is knocked out, they need to call the match. You could always do a no contest if you're worried about the result of the match. Do a no contest, nobody wins, and then you can run it back once the guy is healthy. I think that's the way to go.
I mean, there are issues with that, you know, from a business perspective, and I get that. But, you know, there is also the possibility that you could stop the match and restart it. Now, I'm not saying handle it the way that they did with Matt Hardy, because they did like a 1-minute check, and they're like, all right, he's good to go. Get him out there. But we've seen matches stopped in the past, you know. One that comes, I mean, Cena against Brock Lesnar comes to mind. You know, Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar comes to mind. They weren't exactly the same thing, but we've seen times where people have been, you know, have a doctor look at him first. You know, have a doctor assess whether they think this can continue or not, because, you know, doctor stoppages are a thing that happen in combat sports all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Next question here from Rich says, favorite Wrestle Kingdom?
Either 9 or 11.
Yeah, I think, I would have to say 11, the Okada Omega main event. I just remember how hyped all three of us were watching that together, and just what a great show that was.
I didn't watch that with you guys.
Wasn't it?
I watched that I was living in Virginia.
Okay. What was the one that, maybe it was...
We watched 12 together.
12, okay.
Well, we watched everyone after that together,
right. But yeah, either way, I still think Wrestle Kingdom 11, I would say for that.
9's up there. 9's really close.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 9 might be better. It's hard to say.
Next question from Reddit user Older Guy. He says, with the complaint about the booking in 2020, do you think there is someone in the company or roster that could be a better booker, or at least someone who isn't as formulaic?
I got to tell you the honest truth. I have absolutely no idea, because, you know, booking is an art form. And my guess would be no. Mainly just because Gato has been the best booker of a decade. He's one of the all-time greatest bookers that has ever done booking. And yes, there are formulas in New Japan, and yes, sometimes they can be a little, you know, too stuffy, I guess, is a way to put it. But look at this year's G1 Climax. Like, you thought that it was formulaic and by the numbers, and it was anything but. It was really, really, really hard to call that shit. And I know some people criticize them, but they tried a few different new things. Ultimately, I still thought this year's G1 was incredible. I think if they'd done this year's G1 in front of a crowd, we'd be talking about one of the best G1s ever.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I don't really have a problem with Gato's booking. I just think that they've been over-reliant on too many heel tactics.
And garrote wires.
Yeah, and outside interference. And then, I thought they pushed the wrong guy in Evil and kind of forced him down our throat. But other than that, I mean, the company's still great.
Right. I mean, and there's no way for us to know if there's somebody that could be a better booker. Like,
we don't know.
There's no, you don't know until they start booking.
Yeah, the only other person I know that's a good booker in the company is Jado.
Right.
Because they booked together for the first few years. And even though he kind of exploded Noah and kind of ruined it, the first 6 or 7 months of his booking in Noah was awesome.
Actually, there is one guy I know I don't want booking. That is Kazuchika Okada.
Oh, okay. Yeah, me either.
Now we're going to end with a series of questions from Dom Homie 101. First, ask, in your guys' opinion, who's your favorite wrestler between Keiji Muto and Sting? Who peaked the highest? Who had better overall matches? Who had the better impact on the business? Which was your guys' favorite, Sting versus Muto? And do you guys think we'll ever see both guys in the ring together again to possibly do a face-off?
Wow. Man, that's a lot of questions. I can dive into this. Jeremy, do you want to take a stab at it all? I know this might not totally be your wheelhouse.
I mean, favorite between both of them would have to be Sting, just because I grew up on Sting. He was my second favorite wrestler growing up behind Shawn Michaels. I didn't really follow Keiji Muto growing up. Also, I know what a big star he was and impact he had now, but I was not following Muto growing up. Overall, just looking at the star ratings, I'm sure Muto had the better star ratings. As far as impact on business, I wouldn't really know. Haven't done much research on that to know who. And then would it be possible for a face-off? I mean, anything's possible in the wrestling business, and we've seen AEW bring legends in.
Oh my God, Noah, please. Sting versus Muto, GHC, globally honored crown. Let's get that shit going. I think that's what GHC stands for. I don't know. Yeah, so I mean, between the two, I am a Sting guy.
That's surprising.
I mean, no, it's not, bro. I grew up in the '90s.
I know, but I just feel like you would have picked Muto.
I mean, I respect Muto's work a lot more, and I revere him a little bit more. But I fucking love Sting. Like my favorite wrestlers growing up was the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, Lex Luger, Sting. Are you seeing like a pattern here?
Yeah.
Like those are the dudes that I liked, because they fuck people up and they wore bright colors and they were larger than life. They were awesome. And then, when I was like becoming going into my like teenage years, like Dark Sting came around, 1997, Man with a Vengeance, he carried a fucking baseball bat and flew. I ain't never seen Muta come out of the rafters.
Then you had Wolfpack Sting.
Yeah, Wolfpack. Well, Wolfpack Sting, I always kind of thought Wolfpack Sting was kind of weak because he didn't talk for all these years, and then suddenly, like, he's cutting promos, and, like, I was like, I don't know, fuck all that.
I liked Wolfpack Sting.
I liked the red face paint, and I liked that he was part of the Wolfpack, but it just didn't make... I was probably a smarter fan than you back then. I don't know.
Maybe you were, yeah.
Because think about it. Like, it makes no fucking sense. He fought the NWO for years, and then suddenly he joins the NWO.
He didn't join the black and white. He was fighting the black and white. He joined the red and black.
Bro, the guys on the red and black were the same people we've been fighting all these years. And it came out of nowhere.
Well, they were really good at heart, and they had issues.
No, bro.
What's going on with the black and white?
No, they weren't. Because the finger poke of doom happened a few months later. It just shows, once again, that Sting was a stupid babyface.
That's true.
Anyways, I like Sting better. As far as who peaked the highest, it's definitely Muto. And, like, Muto peaked... in my estimation, I would say his two biggest peaks were like probably 95 would probably be his highest peak in his original incarnation. But then in 2001 when he sort of had to reinvent himself and he shaved his head and he was working between All Japan and New Japan and totally changed his style. And like, I think in 01, he was like one of the 5 best wrestlers in the world again, even after all the knee issues and everything was. So like, he definitely peaked higher. I think Muto definitely had the bigger impact on the business. And I think part of the reason why is because Sting definitely, was a major player in WCW during the, during the 83 weeks, 84 weeks, whatever.
83, yeah.
But he never left WCW. That's the problem. Like, he never worked WWE, and because their side lost, I do think that his influence was a lot less felt as opposed to Keiji Muto's. I mean, he did bigger business. He was a bigger draw. He was a bigger star internationally. I think he influenced more workers. He definitely had the better matches. I think they both had iconic characters, but Muto with the mystique and, the Great Muta character and the spraying of the mist and, the way his movement, like the way he moved in the ring, people are still copying and emulating Muto. I don't see a lot of people copying and emulating Sting, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I think my favorite match of theirs, I think a lot of people point to that Great American Bash 15-minute match, but I probably prefer there's a match from Worldwide, and Muto wears the black, and I think that's I don't remember who wins. It was like a lost match for years. I think you can find it on the WWE Network now, but it's from it's from Worldwide, and it's they traded the television title. I don't know who lost to who, but I think that's the match I like better. It's a little bit longer than the 15-minute match.
His next question: what are your guys' thoughts on tag teams having ring gear or matching ring gear or similar ring gear? Is it a must or is it no big deal?
I prefer it. I like tag teams that have some cohesiveness.
Yeah, I prefer the matching gear also. And we mentioned last week that was kind of an issue with that with Juice and Finley with them not matching this year. But yeah, I think tag teams should have the matching gear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a mark for the Midnight Express. So
next question: recently I saw a video on the historical Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki fight. So my question is, if a similar fight would take in the year 2020, who would you guys take in the Ali role and who would you take in the Inoki role?
It's a really great question. I mean, the reality is there's never been anyone like Ali before or after as a sporting hero and a cultural icon. I mean, it's really tough to say, but I mean, the two biggest, most marketable stars that I can think of that are out there that have enough bravado and are brash enough, it's got to be either Conor McGregor or Floyd Mayweather, I'm guessing.
Yeah, those are two I was thinking about.
And then also keep in mind, both those guys are around 147 to like 160-ish on at max. Probably more towards 155. So I mean, with their size, is there anyone like and again, Inoki was extremely unique in the sense of what he meant to Japan, what he meant as a sporting hero, as a cultural icon. That's tough. I mean, I think there's more cachet in a boxing versus MMA crossover fight, like the kind we saw between Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor, than there is between a pro wrestler versus a true fighter like that.
Right.
Maybe The Rock.
Floyd versus or Conor and Rock.
Conor versus Rock is like the one thing I can think of that's like on that level.
Yeah. I mean, we were already seeing Floyd in the ring. It's Big Show, so
he was pretty good actually.
Yeah,
he was okay. I mean, for what it was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of anybody in Japan that I could think
that's on that Inoki level. Yeah.
There's nobody that's on that level. I mean, I think Okada makes the most sense, but I mean, Okada versus those two guys sounds really fucking weird to me.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't want to see that. His next question, non-New Japan question. Thoughts on the rumor of Marvel maybe trying to get into the wrestling business? Do you guys think we will see a Marvel-type match in the NJPW ring like we saw at Mania this year?
I doubt it. I mean, I don't know much more about the rumors. I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I know like there's some kind of licensing deal with Marvel and AAA, how that match happened. So I think it kind of made more sense with them to start with, Lucha Libre, considering they wear a mask and luchadors are supposed to be kind of like superheroes.
I would like to say that this could never happen in New Japan, but I mean, we've seen some really wild shit in New Japan over the years. The most recent thing that I can think of is like the Tiger Mask W thing, which was kind of similar to this, although not quite to the same level. But we've seen some weird licensed sort of things happen in Japan over the years. So could it happen? I think it could if the price was right.
Right. Next question. Thoughts on New Japan doing a Shawn versus Razor type storyline with the U.S. title?
I mean, we would need to they would need to say Mox was not the champion and give someone else a title. So
right, they would have to make Kenta versus Juice for the title. And whenever Mox come in and be like, nah, I'm still a champ.
What should happen is if you want to, Kenta's the heel, but he's the one who's here. So what he should do is destroy the briefcase again.
And bring out a title.
Bring out a red U.S. title and declare himself the U.S. champion. And then maybe you could see a similar situation.
Yeah. His last question, how likely will we see a Jon Moxley appearance after the Kenta vs. Juice match to confront the winner and set up a match between Moxley and the winner of Kenta vs. Juice?
I think it's highly unlikely. I don't think he's there. I think it's a possibility, so I don't want to totally rule it out, especially with the fact he hasn't been on TV. But, I mean, coronavirus, his wife's pregnant, he just went on a really long run. He's been complaining about his body. I mean, it's definitely possible. I know he would like to work in Japan and be there, but I don't even know if it's feasible. And I don't know if it really makes a lot of sense unless he's going to work the show. Because it's like, why would he take all this time to go out there if he's not going to work?
Just for an angle.
Right, just for an angle.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it has to be, like Dan either mentioned, the match night 2, or he's staying in Japan long. Maybe they do the match at New Year's Dash or something. But yeah, if he's in Japan, it's got to be for more than just an angle. Well, that's going to wrap it up for questions. Real quick, recommended match of the week. Last week, Karen recommended to us the Super J Cup 2016 finals between Kushida and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Thoughts on this matchup?
I didn't watch this. It's been a busy week, man. But I know you watched it.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good matchup here. It's probably one of the best Yoshinobu Kanemaru matches I've seen. It was 4 years ago. He was a lot younger. He was the current GHC Junior Heavyweight Champion. Came out with Despy and Takamichi Noku. Great back and forth match here. We had run-ins from Taiji, and pretty much they were throwing everything at Kushida. Kushida had his neck taped up, so I'm assuming he got injured either before this tournament or during this tournament. And so working over that injured body part, and yeah, pretty much just Kushida having to overcome the cheating antics, Suzuki and running in. He was accompanied with Liger and Taguchi, and they did try to fight off Despy and Taka, but that left the door open for Taichi to come in, hit Black Mephisto, which got a near fall for Kanemaru. But eventually, Kushida came back, fought from underneath, got the hoverboard locked in, and tapped out Kanemaru and got the gold jacket.
I think it was a kimono that year.
A gold kimono, whatever you want to call it.
I think we should get each other kimonos.
Kiss kimonos.
Yeah. I'd rock the shit out of that.
So that was the recommended match from last week. This week, like you heard at the beginning part of the show, the recommended match for this week is Okada versus Tanahashi from Invasion Attack 2013.
Yeah, I love that match. I can't wait to watch it again.
Oh, and that's going to wrap things up for this week's episode. Next week, we'll be back to preview Wrestle Kingdom 15 with our buddy Chris Samsa from VoicesOfWrestling.com and SportOfProWrestling.com. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media, on Twitter. I am at Jeremy L. Donovan. The show is at KI Strong Style. The network is at Social Suplex. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/Social Suplex. In the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group, we are facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we are at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. Check out our Discord server, Social Suplex. Check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio with Rich Latta and James Boyd, the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show from Scotland, which we will be on this week in part 2 of their December Madness.
We're really bad. You know, we pop up on other people's podcasts all the time, and I always forget to promote it on our show, which defeats the purpose. I feel so stupid.
So yeah, definitely check that out. Grave Consequences with Caleb Maserati, the 8-Bit Suplex with Josh number 2 and Sandy, and All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.